Man, I couldn't have timed that any better. That music went right off right as the thing was ending. That was a total accident, by the way. That was just, maybe that's a sign of how lucky we're going to be today, chat. Welcome in. It is week 8 with NFLosophy. Thank you guys for tuning in. It is our weekly pregame show. This is actually probably my favorite stream of the week. The recaps are always good. The preview is always fun. But man, on Sunday nights or on Sunday mornings, man, like this for me is what it's all about, because we talk about all the specific matchups that go into today's game and talk about how everybody's going to attack each other, how games may end up playing out, and we try to talk about not just like one specific, like this is how it's going to go. It's like, hey, it's probably going to go this way, but if it doesn't, let's talk about all the other ways that it could potentially go. So looking forward to getting into all of that today. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. Super excited to be here. Oh, we don't want to go there yet. Let's go here. We're just chatting for the moment. So Husky, you don't really want to see my face anyways, right? I mean, it's probably better just to listen to the BS that I spew. Although I won't tell you that the Bucks need to be able to run the ball today, or else they're not going to be able to win, because that's absolutely not what is going to happen in that Saints game. So, is RV. Welcome in. Should I bother having hope that the Panthers will win today or turn things around moving forward? Yeah, absolutely. So here's the thing about the Panthers. I actually fully trust Mr. Matt Rule. I have a lot of love for Mr. Matt Rule. Sorry, let me get rid of some of that music there. I fully believe that in Matt Rule as a head coach. Now, did they make a choice, a poor choice in the quarterback that they decided they wanted to roll with, and then to also pay him for next year? Probably not. We can talk about the Chiefs too. We can cover that before we get into today's game. While always RV. So for me, for the Panthers, so first of all, if you want your quarterback to get right, the best way for him to do that is to play the Falcons. And so Darnold actually has pretty good matchup today. The Falcons defense is really bad. In my opinion, probably the worst defense against the pass outside of maybe the Lions. Sorry, Chiefs fan, but y'all know what I mean. Yeah. So for the Panthers, they're going to be fine. It's going to be an interesting game today. The big matchup for me isn't really the Panthers offense against the Falcons defense. I think they're going to be fine. Sexy Darnold won't do anything. Here's the thing. Atlanta's defense, they make bad quarterbacks look good. Every week they continue to make, you're like, wow, Jalen Hurts looks great against the Falcons. Wow, Trevor Lawrence looks great. Who was it? Tua looks like an efficient quarterback against the Falcons. Screwed your lineup 2 times in a row in fantasy. Yeah, like if you want to stream a quarterback, if for whatever reason you're in a 2 quarterback league or something, and somebody's like out there on the waiver wire and they just happen to be playing the Falcons, go grab that guy, because he's probably going to outscore one of your 2. So Herbert for the win today. Chargers coming off a bye week. That one's one of the more intriguing matchups that I'm excited to talk about, because I mean, it's going to be Bill Belichick versus a rookie second year quarterback, which he still tends to have a pretty good amount of success. The Patriots have looked pretty solid so far, and we'll talk about that, but I'm curious if they continue to look as solid as they have in the past few weeks. So while always RV, we talked about this a little bit, and I'll cover it right now for anybody that happened to miss the Thursday stream. So, or maybe it was the Tuesday stream that we went over this. So for the Chiefs, there's a couple things going wrong with the Chiefs. So when you play on the edge, when you live on the edge, it cuts very deep both ways, right? So Patrick Mahomes has been living on the edge, and the Chiefs have been living on the edge of turnover luck, right? Of being as aggressive as they can be without being incredibly unlucky in terms of turnovers before this year. They get into this year, now all of a sudden they just push it just a little bit further. Javier, welcome in. Appreciate it. Greetings from Mexico. Love it, man. Love it. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for hanging out. And thanks for the follow as well. I saw that earlier whenever we were coming in. So thank you very much. Glad to have you here. So for the Chiefs, when you live on the edge of something, if you fall off, it ends up being a disaster, right? But if you take a step back, you can start kind of protecting yourself a little bit from that edge. And the Chiefs have always pushed to that edge, and this year they're kind of just a little bit over the edge, and it's making things go really, really badly. Their defense hasn't been very good, which hasn't helped them out. They used to be able to be aggressive and create turnovers, and they're not really getting that out of their defense. Patrick Mahomes, I don't personally think, and I've read all the numbers, and there's a ton of confirmation bias in this, right? Is that there Patrick Mahomes isn't pushing any harder than he has before. He's taking all of the same chances. PFF says it. ESPN said, like, the smart people at ESPN are saying it. The people that I follow, like the whole analytics community, is saying, yeah, his turnover worthy plays aren't more than what they used to be. He's still playing at the same aggressiveness that he's always played. It's just, one, his turnover rate is higher, which means he's getting a little bit more unlucky. And two, when he does make a turnover worthy play, it's way worse for Patrick Mahomes than it has been in the past. So that's number one with him. Number two is, now all of these defenses have taken the Todd Bowles copy from last year. Mahomes has gotten unlucky on so many dropped INTs. Dropped INTs, crossover, or drop passes. Because for me, the one thing that continuously shows up on film with Patrick Mahomes is how many balls his wide receivers drop that end up turning into INTs. Yes, 1,000% crossover. That's exactly right. Drop passes into INTs. Like, he had 2 or 3 against the Chargers that ended up that way. He had another one last week against the Titans that it was the same throw that he always makes. It's the comeback. He was rolling left. He throws it low. It was the right throw. It just happens to pop off the guy's hands, pop up into the air, and somebody's there to scoop it. Now, why does that happen? Right? Like, stuff like that, it doesn't just, like, oh my God, all of a sudden it happens, right? The reason that is actually happening, there's a logical reason as to why so many of Patrick Mahomes' drop passes are now turning into interceptions. The reason is defenses are now copying the cover two that Todd Bowles put on show against the Chiefs last year in the Super Bowl. They're now copying that. They're going 2 high safeties. They're playing a little bit softer on the edge, on the corners, on the perimeter, and saying, hey, we're going to take a step back, and we're not going to let Tyreek Hill beat us deep. We're not going to let Travis Kelce beat us deep. The smart teams are doing this, right? The Titans did it last week. The Bills did it to them. And they're saying, hey, we're going to back off. We're going to play cover 2. So now anytime a ball gets tipped, instead of it just being one person in the area, everybody has their eyes on the ball because they're playing that cover 2 and everything stays in front of them. And now when balls get tipped, there's always somebody else there to collect any of those extra balls floating around. So that's what she said. Anyways, so yeah, so that there's a logical reason as to why his luck it's even though he's not pushing it any farther, why his turnover luck has gone down. Cover 2, that was the whole idea behind Tony Dungy's cover 2 defense is it's fine if they catch the ball short, but get to the ball and get it out. And also the underneath players in the cover 2, if you can get to the football at the time it's getting to the receiver and hit them, it's probably going to end up popping up in the air. That's going to be super advantageous for a defense. So the Chiefs should probably dial it back just a second, just for a minute, right? For a game or two. And if they dial it back just a little bit, they're probably going to end up in a much better spot going forward in terms of not turning the ball over. Honestly, I really think that and you'll rarely hear me say this about a really good offense like the Chiefs, but I feel like they kind of need to get the run game going a little bit, because basically the way to get people get defenses out of cover 2 or 2 high safety specifically is you have to run them out of it. You have to run on the ground and get 6, 7, 8 yards of carry until they have to start loading the box. And then you can go back to being the Chiefs and to being Patrick Mahomes. But until you do that, you're just going to have to be patient, take everything. And that's the other thing too, right? And I should go back and look this up, but whenever the Chiefs have to methodically move their way down the field, that's not how they've operated in the last 3 or 4 years. They've been able to attack deep and attack with quick strikes and big strikes, and they've got to figure out how to play a different way on offense until they can make defenses do something else. So, crossover, spot on against the Chargers. He was a little too high to Blake Bell. Bell should have caught it. And he goes, yeah. So, if you're talking about the first one was one, he was a little bit off to the tight end down the middle, and it comes off of his hands. And then Asante Samuel Jr. made a diving catch, which was pretty impressive. Like all of that stuff is crazy. Nobody fears CEH. Run game still works. Yep. Grizz, welcome in. Glad to see you back. Run game still works. They refuse to commit. Exactly. They're so used to being that big play offense. They're like, we can't run the ball. It's what I say about the Bucks. Every time you run the ball, you're taking the ball out of your best player's hands, and you have all these weapons. Why wouldn't you use them? Well, for the Chiefs, you're turning the ball over too much, and teams are playing specifically to that. So how are you going to be able to do that? How are you going to be able to adjust to what defenses are doing? And the fact is it shouldn't take you 3 or 4 games as it's taking you. So I still think the Chiefs are probably going to be okay. But they've got to, again, you'll probably never, it's weird for me to say this, but the Chiefs need to figure out how to run the ball. I think they've got to run the ball to get people out of that too high. But yeah, so good questions early on. Very, very good questions. Sexy, Javier, Crossover, Grizz, Wow, Always RV, Husky, everybody welcome in. Thank you guys for participating in chat. Always more fun whenever it's a conversation, not a presentation. So thank you guys for coming in. Anybody that's here that's joining, my name is Joe, probably better known and definitely better known as NFLosophy on Twitch and on Twitter. Thank you guys. So this is our pregame show. We take a few questions, talk to chat a little bit before we get going, and then basically what we'll do is we'll go through every single game for this particular week, including Thursday nights. We'll talk a little bit about that and what happened there, and talk about what we thought we were going to see, because we go into our matchup on Thursday night before that game, and then that's usually a pretty good indication of how spot on we're going to be that week. Although last week it wasn't terrific. We were spot on Thursday and then missed a lot of the other games. And we can talk about why. Crossover, CEH may not dominate defenses like the Ravens and Browns, but he can be effective on IZ, inside zone, and duo. Yeah, I think it's more about scheme and timing for them, more with that. Mike Williams or Keenan Allen. I love Herbert. I would say if you're talking about fantasy sexy, I'm going with Keenan Allen today, because I think I think that what's going to happen, and you're going to see, I think the Patriots, and we'll get into this, the Patriots are going to deploy the same game plan that they deployed against the Cowboys and against the Bucks. Too high, stop the deep throw, don't let them beat you deep, make them run the ball. Let's run the ball and try to control the game, control the pace, control the clock, and then hopefully we can be in it at the end, and we'll figure it out from there, because the Patriots feel like they're better at situational football than anybody else in the NFL. So I think if I'm going for it, Keenan Allen is probably the better against the cover 2. And Mike Williams probably gets shut down a little bit. Although the problem is all it takes is one touchdown from Mike Williams to turn up, 4 catches for 40 yards into 5 catches for 45 and a touchdown, right? Because he's such a big red zone threat. But they also use Jared Cook down there a lot too. So all good stuff, all good questions. Let's go ahead and jump into it. We've got 2.5 hours. We'll be here till kickoff. I'll try to get, I think I decided last week I want to try to get you guys out of here. I want to try to end at like 12:45, 12:50 Eastern time. That way you guys get time to grab your beer, grab your food, grab your lunch, whatever, and get on to the games. Instead of me carrying on all the way through kickoff. So, I'm just saying teams aren't really playing the run against KC, nothing against. Yeah, that's exactly it. That's exactly what we're saying. Grizz, is that with their too high, with all the defense, with every defense playing too high against the Chiefs, I mean, why they've got to figure out the run game. And it's not just the run game. It's not just handing the ball off to CEH. It's also they've got to figure out those screens. They've got to figure out the crossers. They've got to figure out some of those underneath routes. And I used to say this all the time is with Deshaun Jackson, one of my favorite routes that the Bucks did not use nearly enough was just run him on a little drag, a little short crosser, 3, 4, 5 yards in front of the line of scrimmage, run him from the outside all the way across. First of all, if they're in zone, he's going to have a gap to be able to get into. Second of all, if they're in man, he's going to have a step or two almost every single time on everybody because it's a slower developing route because he's got to go all the way from outside into the inside, which is 25, 30 yards that he's got to run, right? And if he can go all the way across, get the ball to him, and then let his speed take him around the corner. Like they should be using Tyreek Hill in that same way. And they do to a degree, right? They like to run a lot of those jet sweeps, the end arounds, those type of things. But I think they've got to when teams are playing too high, you don't run a ton of edge rushes. You want to get up the field as quickly as you can because when you run to the edges or you do those sweeps or tosses or pitches out to the edge, it gives those safeties time to get down to where they need to be to help support against the run. Those sweeps and tosses to the edge, those are better whenever you've got a condensed box and everybody's coming down towards the A gaps and the B gaps, and then you get to the edge and now all of a sudden you've got numbers on the edge, right? So that's where they've got to be smarter about how they run the ball and how they try to move the ball in those short areas whenever teams are playing too high against them. So very easy, normal stuff. It's just it's all about how Andy Reid schemes it up and the timing of those plays. And Patrick Mahomes has to do a better job at the line of scrimmage of being able to get the team into those plays as well, and making sure not to check out of them because he does have the authority to do so. If there's a run called, don't try to, and you see too high, don't try to check to a pass that you think is going to be better as a slant or something like that because you want to throw it. Just let the run go. And they're good enough. So yeah, all right. So that's our start for the week. In terms of all of the things, Jackson is on the trade block too. Jackson who? Not sure. Jackson Mahomes? Do we think David Johnson gets work today? I mean, he kind of has to, right? I mean, they traded Ingram, so I think David Johnson has to get work today. I don't know how much he gets, sexy, but yeah. Oh, yeah. Deshaun, you're right. Yeah. So the Rams put Deshaun Jackson, mutually agreed that Deshaun can go looking for a trade partner, which is weird to me because he came in, blew up the Bucks, and then hasn't done anything since. So he still has value. I just don't know if anybody's going to give anything significant for him. And they may release him if he's willing to walk away from his contract. They may release him. The problem is he doesn't necessarily have that avenue to use. So, all right, let's jump in. Let's go into our recap. So, 6th rounder. I think that's probably all you can ask for out of it. No one's paying that much. I mean, Deshaun can be valuable, but he's a one-trick pony, whereas one trick is really, really good, right? His speed. It's just how do you deploy that? And some offenses can figure that out. But it's not like you're taking him as an inside receiver or as a slot guy. You're taking him as an outside guy that's going to be able to get deep, stretch a defense, lift the safeties, those type of things. And I think that's valuable, but it's valuable in the right sense, right? Somebody like the Browns would make sense to me. Somebody that they love to run the ball and they often get condensed boxes and they get very heavy boxes. They've got extra linebackers down near the line of scrimmage. They bring safeties down near the line of scrimmage to help support the run game. A guy like Deshaun being able to get deep, especially since Landry and OBJ aren't really doing a ton so far, that might be a smart spot for him to go. And especially for a team that's a contender that could use a weapon like that. All right, let's get into it. So let's talk about we'll talk about Packers and Cards very, very quickly, right? So there was a lot of people that said that the Packers didn't have any shot against Cardinals on Thursday. And we came in and said they absolutely do. Don't care that they have all of their receivers hurt. What is going to matter in this game are two main things for the Packers. One, control the clock, control the pace of the game. They've done it all season long. There's no reason to think it actually makes sense. See, I told crossover. I said I would never bet against the Cards, and then last week it just made too much sense to not bet against the Cards. Like I felt like this was one of those games where 6.5 was way too much. for me. Like if it were 3 or something like that, probably would have taken the Cards and ended up having the wrong pick for that particular game. But at 6.5, it never made sense to me. So Packers going to control the pace of the game like they always do. There's two reasons that they like to do that. One, they like to be in control on offense, but two, they like to protect their defense. I think they know that their defense is mediocre at best, especially without Jair Alexander, down a couple pass rushers. Like they just got Preston Smith back. Zadarius Smith still out. Like for me, they need to be able to control the clock, and they do so not just through the run game, but through the amount of screens that they throw. And you guys saw that early and often they went to the screens, especially against a fast defense that likes to try to get themselves and isn't disciplined in Arizona, and they can get themselves out of position in a hurry. Totally made sense that was exactly what they were going to do, and to be able to protect that defense and control the clock. And then the other thing is they were going to play too high. That's what they like to do. They weren't going to let Kyler Murray just sling it down the field on them, and take advantage of all of those deep throws. Now it gave Rondell Moore some space. That gave AJ Green and DeAndre Hopkins a little bit of space to work underneath, which means that they can run the ball. Edmonds and Connor had solid games. So like we saw everything coming, and then basically at the end, Arizona probably should have won that game had AJ Green. So the story is that AJ Green apparently just missed the check from Kyler at the line of scrimmage, and they called a run, and Kyler checked because he saw one-on-one on the outside with AJ Green, and AJ just missed it. Now AJ was in perfect position because he wasn't even looking, and it hits him in the back of the head. And so yeah, so they end up with a bad turnover at the end. But that's the type of game that Green Bay has played all season long. It doesn't matter who they're playing. It doesn't matter if they're playing Washington. It doesn't matter if they're playing Arizona. It doesn't matter if they're playing Cincinnati. That's just the type of game that they've been playing. And there's no reason to think that they won't continue to play that same way. Chase Edmonds, 7 attempts, 30 yards. Connor, 5 for 22. This is another team that they realize that taking the ball out of Kyler's hands probably isn't the best way. But I mean, let's see. Packers had the ball for 37 and a half minutes. They controlled that game. Their defense was only on the field for 22 minutes. That's how you have to beat good offenses, right? I mean, it's the old Peyton Manning. If you're playing against Peyton Manning, this is what you got to do. And I think teams are coming around to this strategy more and more often. But yeah, Packers do a really good job of controlling the clock, both through the run game and the short passing game. Deshaun should go to the Chargers, by the way. I mean, sure, you end up moving Keenan Allen into the slot pretty much all the time. But it feels kind of, I don't know, man. I don't know. It makes sense. It makes a little bit of sense, but it doesn't make as much sense for someone like the Browns. That's probably where he wants to go. He loves being back home. James Conner's stat line is so gross. Hey, we said the one, like, Connor getting a touchdown is pretty much guaranteed every week. And he had 2 touchdowns, 5 for 22, 2 touchdowns. Solid. Works for my fantasy team. Pack outplayed the Cards. They didn't show up at all with 90% of their weapons. I expected more from the Cardinals. Yeah, Husky. There was a particular promising for the Pack though, Husky. Yeah, it definitely was. So there was a particular Arizona beat writer that was like, all things considered, Arizona, they still almost had it, even with only having the ball for 22 minutes, only turning the ball over 3 times. And I forget what the other one was, but he basically like listed all of these things that they are 100% in control of, and said, in spite of them playing poorly, basically, they still almost had it at the end. And I'm like, well, yeah, but they played poorly. They didn't deserve it at the end, right? Like you can say all of these caveats, but that's not like, and he was like, oh, I'm trying to find a positive in it. And I'm like, well, saying that they played played like ass, and then turning around and saying, "Hey, like, we they just barely pulled it out." Like that's not a good way to look at it. Like, let's say, hey, they lost because of their 3 turnovers. They lost because of not in spite, like they could have won in spite of, right? So it doesn't make sense to me. The Arizona didn't play the game that they wanted to play. I thought Vance Joseph called a pretty good game as a defensive coordinator, although it's hard to stop this defense, but you should have known what the Packers were going to do. And we talk about it. The Packers every week, they play cohesive. The offense and the defense and the special teams are all tied in. And then of course Rondell Moore with the muff punt too. We got to throw that in there. That was a big moment. But that's basically what the Packers do. They wait for you to beat yourself because they know they're good enough to beat you unless you play perfectly, even against good teams. So but the Packers play in phase between between all three parts of the game, right? Between offense, defense, special teams, and then the Cardinals did not do that. If I'm the Cardinals coming into that game, I'm going, they're gonna play too high, and they're gonna try to control the clock, and I need to get out ahead of them by 14 points to put them in a position where they're not going to be able to do what they want to do. Now, obviously, that's great. Get ahead by 14 points, right? Easier said than done. But that's where they should have been is they should have said, hey, we want to come out and go up tempo. We want to push it. We want to be aggressive. We want to force them into trying to play our game, not the other way around. Matrix Gaming, welcome in. Oh, off. Sorry. Delete. Delete. Get out of here. All right. Cool, cool. Sorry. I should actually read the messages before I call somebody out. All right. So that's Packers Cardinals. We pretty much nailed that one. We're doing pretty good on these Thursday night games. Maybe I should actually like put money on some of these Thursday night games. So yeah. Yeah, Packers Cards. I like that one. We called that one pretty well. Pretty happy. Can't really be mad about that particular game because I feel like we absolutely nailed that one in terms of picking it. So hopefully we're as good the rest of this week, the rest of the week as we were with that particular one. So let's mark this guy out. All right. Let's keep it moving. Let's go on to Rams Texans. So sometime between the 11, I think it's like 11:15, 12:15, we're gonna be on we'll be on Twitch's front page, so we may have a few extra people in here this week. So we'll see. But very promising game for the Packers. I still don't believe in that defense, but I think they play in a way that is perfect for what they want that defense to do. Plus, I really think Ryan, welcome in. Real quick, how did it change your perception of Packers executing that game plan? It's what I've watched them do all week or all year. Like that's basically what they've done all year is play fairly soft on defense, fairly vanilla. And just try to keep because they know they've got Aaron Rodgers, right? And they know that he's going to be able to win games for them. And they've called a ton of we talked about it on Thursday night. They run more screens in the NFL than anybody else. They don't run the ball a ton, but they do use a lot of short, quick passes to try to keep control of the game. And then they take their shots whenever Aaron Rodgers dictates that it's time for a shot. You saw he got so mad whenever they got a guy across the line of scrimmage on a snap, and then the refs blew it dead because they called it encroachment. And he's like, he was yelling at the refs, like, don't call that dead. And they had no reason to. Technically, he stepped across, and to be unabated, you actually have to come all the way across the line of scrimmage. And he came across, and they snapped it, but he was already moving backwards, so it technically wasn't unabated. It was a mess up. But those are the ones where Aaron Rodgers is going to beat you. And then without Devontae Adams, you knew that was the plan, because when they do go deep, it's Devontae. When they happen to get one-on-ones, because not every team can play two across at safety against the Packers the entire game. coaches are not patient with that type of stuff. Like we talked about it in the first part of the stream this morning, the Chiefs, they've got to be more patient with the run game because teams are playing too high. You've got to run them out of that. And I think, I forget who the announcer was, but he did a great job highlighting that in against the Bengals of saying, hey, what do you, because the play by play guy was like, so what do you do against too high? And he flat out says, you have to run them out of it. Like you just have to be patient and you have to run them out of it. Or maybe it was one of the games that Romo called for the Packers. It might have been Romo. But yeah, that's Ryan. I think that was exactly what they came in and planned and executed perfectly. And they get a win against the only undefeated team in the NFL without Devontae Adams, without Alan Lazard, without David Bakhtiari. Like that's impressive, man. Should they have lost that game based on the last play? Probably, but they had earned it by the way that they came in and they strategized and they played that game. So more power to them. It just shows that with the right game plan, the talent level of every team in the NFL is always so close, especially in some of these like really big matchups. That's why I always say it comes down to coaching. It's great when you've got to have good players. Don't get me wrong, but it's the coaching that defines what happens because the strategy and the outcome of the game is often decided by the strategies coming in. You saw that last week with the Bengals and Ravens. We talked about it. Like, hey, Bengals need to figure out how can they aggressively rush Lamar without opening up running lanes. They figured out a way to do that and they executed well against it. And the Ravens need to figure out how do they want to guard Jamar Chase? Are they going to put Marlon Humphrey on him and go one-on-one all day? Or are they going to put the second best guy, which is probably Averett, on him and rotate coverage over? And they decided to go one-on-one with Humphrey, and he gives up 200 plus yards and a couple of touchdowns. So those decisions before the game ended up determining how that game was going to play out. So that's why I'm always about coaching. That's why we do this pregame show to talk about how teams want to play these specific games based on the matchups, because that's what matters in the NFL. The teams are it's not college where you've got, a team like like when you've got a team like Georgia that's just miles more talented than Florida is right now. And basically all they have to go out there and do is play backyard football and they're probably going to win, right? In the NFL, it's much more about scheme and matchups and strategy and adjustments to that for that matter. Yeah, that's why I'm here. So a ton of credit to LaFleur, Ryan. Yeah, absolutely. I have bashed on LaFleur, but I think he's doing exactly what he needs to do with this particular team. I think as the pack gets healthy, they're just as much as a contender as anyone else. Yeah, I'm still not sold on the defense, Ryan. I think that's the thing that they're doing a great job of protecting it, and they will continue to do so even when Jair Alexander comes back, because you don't want to put that secondary out there. But I mean, there's no reason to think that you could look at them as a similar to the Bucks in terms of their makeup of, hey, they play a different style of defense. But they can be attacked in the secondary if you can block them up front. And then the offense is basically runs through the quarterback. The problem is that the Bucks have way more weapons than the Packers have right now. So are they a contender? Absolutely. Would I put them up there with, say, the Bucks and maybe even the Cowboys? Probably not, just because I don't think their roster is there yet. And I think coordinators like Leftwich and Kellen Moore have showed that they're willing to do whatever it takes to win a game. Although I would say LaFleur has too, but LaFleur can't open up the game plan as much as those other two in the NFC can. So it's going to be a fun run to the end of the year, that's for sure. Rams should take on Cooks. Love the man. He clearly is and enjoying his place in Texas. Dude, that poor guy. He's suffering in Houston right now. I wish he could get out. Free Brandon Cooks. Amen to that. He deserves to go somewhere better. Cooks would be great in Cleveland. Cooks would be great just about anywhere. Like the Saints could probably, I talked about this last night. Like I feel like the Saints could use them. The Rams have 3 receivers already that they just want to feed the ball to. That's why they're interested in getting rid of Deshaun Jackson. The problem is one injury to any of those guys, and Deshaun becomes much, much more valuable. Who else? Eagles, no. 49ers could use either of those guys. They could use both of those guys. Put them on the 49ers. Go give up a 7th and a 6th round to get those guys and take them on. You might have to give up a 5th for Cooks, but take them on. The problem is 49ers wouldn't they haven't been using any of their other guys. Um, Bears, no. Panthers. I mean, Panthers could use them. Panthers could use either one of those guys too. Falcons. The Falcons aren't playing for this year. That's the problem. Dolphins, no. Bills, no. Bengals don't necessarily need them. Ryan, thank you so much for the sub. I truly appreciate that, man. Thank you very much. Welcome in. Appreciate that so much. Of course, happy to have you, man. Hopefully you'll stick around. We'll be here all the way up until kickoff. All right, so let's keep going on games. All right, let's go Rams Texans. So we probably won't spend a ton of time. This probably isn't the most exciting matchup. So for me, right now it's -16. Rams in Houston. The thing about this is I learned a long time ago that when a home team is or is a dog by 16 by 2 touchdowns or more, it's very, very hard to pick them. Now, is this the biggest, you know, spread of the week and Rams can absolutely cover? Sure, absolutely they can. I just don't I always struggle with picking a home dog, a home heavy dog like this. I think Mark Ingram gets a pile on TD. I don't know, man. I don't know. Sexy, we'll talk about that because for me, I don't. This feels like a game where both teams are going to throw 45 times. Like, I just don't. I don't think either team feels like they're going to be able to run, nor is it effective for them to run. The Saints may try it a little bit, but they're going to have to get funky with how they use Alvin Kamara today to be able to get him going because the whole 20 rushes for 50 yards or whatever it was that he had last week, they did that on purpose, but and they knew that, hey, even if it's not effective, we still need to run. We still need to run him, but we'll see if that plays out again today. I do think that they're going to feel like they need to control the clock. So for me, the Rams heavily outnumber and out. They have just too much firepower for the Texans. I think this is an easy W for the Rams. I don't think it turns into a game like last week where the Lions, they brought everything that they could against the Rams and played it like it was their Super Bowl. You might see a little bit of that from the Texans just because they saw how much it worked, but I think the Rams are going to be prepared for that. I mean, how nice is it for the Rams to get to play the Lions and the Texans back to back? Probably the 2 worst teams in the NFL. So that's the thing is I'm with you, Sexy. I just don't see Houston scoring very much. However, I will say I haven't really seen a ton out of Mr. Aaron Donald the last couple of weeks. I need to see him. I don't know if he's just not doing it, not working it. But we'll see. I think David Johnson, if he's going to be effective today, he's going to be effective in the run game. There's nothing about this game that says that Houston can cover 16. I think that game last week could have scared the Rams enough to say, we probably need to go in. We probably need to actually go in and manage this. And then let's see. Are there any other notes that I've got? No. It's never good to take a home dog or never good to pick against a home dog that's more than 2 touchdowns, but I got to do it. I still think this was like 14.5. I would have preferred that, but I'm still going to take the Rams. Yeah, taking the Rams -16. I don't think they have the same problem that they did last week. Rams will let their foot off. That's the problem, Sexy. They let their foot off the pedal last week. And didn't come in completely prepared for that game. So, all right, let's move on. We'll go to it opened at 14.5. Yeah, and it moved to 16, which is crazy. Because a 1.5 is a lot, right? For a line to move. And there's a few. So Dallas line this week moved from 1.5 to 3. The total dropped from 55 to 51. So everybody's betting the under on Dallas, Minnesota. They think that that's going to be a defensive game. The Rams moved from 14.5 to 16. KC moved from 9.5 to 10.5, which I thought was interesting. And then Tampa Bay, New Orleans moved from Tampa Bay -5.5 to Tampa Bay -4. So it moved 1.5 in favor of the Saints, which I thought was interesting. But we've been talking about this. The Saints have been getting healthy. So it's hard to, that defense is good. Like the defense is one of the best in the NFL. The problem is I still don't think they have enough firepower to be able to get past the offensive line of the Bucks and to be able to manage these weapons. Gronk is going to be a full go today. I heard my boys on Fantasy Football Addicts on Twitch were talking about it, and Gronk. I feel like Gronk gets a TD today because I think they get into the red zone and Gronk becomes a bigger deal. I don't know that Gronk comes up with a huge catch that's like deep down the field or anything like that, but I do think that Gronk is primed for a red zone score today. So that's Rams, Texans, Steelers, Browns. So this is an interesting one, right? So the power of, or the strength of the Steelers is that pass defense. The defense is much better than the offense. They've kind of skirted by with how that offense is so far. They're 9th in DVOA on defense. They're 22nd in DVOA on offense. Pittsburgh is, they're actually pretty good against the run too. I would have assumed that they were better against the pass. So with Alonzo Highsmith and TJ Watt both healthy, that makes it very hard to manage Pittsburgh on the edges in terms of a rush. And I think that the Browns getting their tackles back is huge for this. So with Conklin back, I think what's his face? Is Treader back today as well? Let me see here. Let's see. Clowney's questionable. Game time decision. I don't think that's a huge deal. He's not a gap closer, basically. Peoples-Jones is out. Denzel Ward is out. Denzel Ward being out could be problematic for him. Takaris McKinley is questionable. God, they have so many people injured. Yeah, both tackles. Neither one of them on the injury report. So they're full up at tackles, which is going to be great for them because I think that's specifically where Pittsburgh would be able to tackle them. So they may end up moving TJ Watt around a good amount along the line to try to find out where he's going to work best. Fitzpatrick in the secondary is going to be very important today because whether it's filling up against the run against the Browns or playing that underneath against the Browns receivers and trying to undercut some of those routes or dropping hits on him, I think is going to be big. Baker is banged up. It's his left shoulder, not his right. So it's possible that he could absolutely have a go at it today. And then because he has a go at it, he doesn't actually go all the way through with it. Right. So I know they're going to test that today and see if he can go. It sounds like he's going to play. Even if he plays, just him taking hits. I'm not worried about his ability to throw. I think he's going to be fine. They'll be able to manage the pain there. I think the issue is if he takes a hit and how many hits he takes. So I would expect this to be a heavy run game. Steelers are going to load up against it. Again, Browns don't necessarily have the biggest, arsenal of deep threats to be able to be able to torch them deep. If they had somebody like if Peoples-Jones were in there, that would probably be good because they could get some one-on-one matchups with them. Treader's going to be in today too. That's going to be big for them. So their full line's back basically for the Browns. That's going to be huge for them. This could potentially be a David Njoku game. And maybe that's where they end up putting Fitzpatrick. Maybe they put him on Njoku pretty much all day and say, we'll worry about the rest from there because we're not worried about anything else. We're worried about the run and we're worried about Njoku. That's how I would see the Steelers playing this. Baker's probably not going to, I don't think they're going to put Baker in, especially early, in a spot to really kind of take a ton of hits. And again, that they don't really have to. It doesn't matter if it doesn't seem to matter if teams load the box against the Browns, they still continue to be able to run. And I think that's huge for them because then you just don't have to rely on Baker as much. So that's the offense. On defense for the Browns, I think um, Miles Garrett's going to have a big game, right? I think for them, Miles Garrett can take over this game and basically torch the entire Steelers game plan if he's strong. So with him coming in and being able to get some pressure, Big Ben throws fastest in the league. I think it's like something like 2.1, 2.2 seconds. Quickest throw time to throw in the league. And I think that's going to have to continue. I do think that if they were able to test the ball in that intermediate range, I think that's something that the Steelers could do against this Browns defense. Um, Jock is out, right? If I remember correctly, Jock went on IR. Yep, Jock's on IR. And so I think that's a big loss for the Browns because their young linebacker, rookie linebacker, was playing really really well, super fast to the ball, and played quick pretty much everywhere. So for me, I'm leaning. I think the Browns win this game. I think overall they're the better team, even without Baker. My question is can Miles Garrett cause enough havoc and chaos in the backfield that it's going to be a problem for the Steelers? I don't expect the Steelers to be able to run the ball a ton. Cleveland is third best in rush DVOA. A lot of that should be attributed to how much they can control the ball and control the clock. I think the Browns. I do want to look up something real quick while I'm thinking about it. But I think the Browns uh, are a team that they don't necessarily want to try to blitz a ton. That's not really what they do. They blitz 19% of the time, which is 22nd in the league. Go with 4-man rush 77% of the time, 3-man rush and only 4% of the time. And they are primarily a zone coverage team. So they're going to give Ben some room to throw underneath. They've just got to tackle and then hopefully get the turnovers where they can. If they create even one or two turnovers, I think the game is easily theirs, and is easily a cover. I don't think they're going to allow them to be able to get like a deep throw against that Browns defense. Um, I gotta go. I'm gonna go Browns. I'm gonna go Browns to cover here. I've basically underestimated the Steelers pretty much all year because I continue to watch Ben throw and he can hit the shorter stuff just fine. He's pretty on point with those. Intermediate, still a pretty good amount of solid throws here and there. But once you start getting beyond like 10, 15 yards, his accuracy goes out the window. It just falls off a cliff because he just doesn't have the juice to get it there. Let's see. Yeah, I'm gonna go Browns. I'm gonna go Browns -4. All right, Grizz Onyemata is back from suspension for the Saints. Wonder if he'll be wrecking it or still rounding into game shape for him. I think the Bucks are lucky that him coming in and playing this game. I mean, he's always going to be a good player, but I do think that it's good for them to have him back. I do expect him to be a little bit rusty. When you sit out that long, it's rare that people just come in and players just come in and start wrecking the game in their first one. So. Let's see. Oh, I was going to my notes. I need to. All right, Cleveland -4. All right, let's keep it moving. Let's see. Queen, welcome back in. Thanks so much for coming in. Let's see. I have a question. Diggs has 1 interception in every game, 2 in Panthers game. How many will he have for Dallas Cowboys by the end of the season, and how many will he have in Halloween night game? So, a couple things there, Queen. So one, are we going into that game? No, we're not going. We're not to that game yet. So a couple things there. So one, Diggs is both a little bit lucky and also a lot of that is due to him because he is an aggressive cornerback. He understands what I'll say that I love about Diggs is Diggs understands what's happening or what should be happening around him. And it allows him to play more aggressively. The reason for that is he knows where his safeties are supposed to be. He knows what the coverage is around him. And based on what he sees, he takes a good amount of chances. Now, I will say I don't think he overdoes it. I think he takes just the right amount of chances of going for the ball instead of for the player. He's solid in coverage, but the amount of chances that he takes is what allows him to be able to have an interception a game, two in the Panthers game. That also does leave him exposed a little bit because if he thinks he sees it and he's got a shot at it, that can be manipulated against him. He has also been pretty lucky as well because there's been a couple of times that he didn't really deserve the interception and he got it. So he's not going to come out with like an interception in every single game this season by any means, but that doesn't mean that he won't continue to stack them up for the rest of the year simply because of the way that he's playing. Against the Vikings, it's going to be hard. Cousins does a really good job in the short to intermediate. He has some really good receivers. We'll talk about this. This is a very hard game to call because of how these two teams match up. And it'll be one of the later games that we call. But for me, I don't know who they put Diggs on. I could totally see them putting him on Jefferson. I could totally see them putting him on Thielen. How they decide to manage that is going to be interesting to me. I think because those two guys, I would consider both Thielen and Jefferson 1A and 1B on that team. I think they end up putting Diggs on whoever they think is the lesser of the two. And managing their coverage to the other guy and rotating coverage to the other guy. I think they've got to do that. And we'll talk about that because Dan Quinn used to be that cover 3 defense with a lot of single high safety. That's not who he is anymore. I give a lot of credit to Dan Quinn because he self-scouted and said, you know what? I can't do this with these players. Here's what I need to do with the Cowboys talent. And he's adapted to it. And we could talk about through that a little bit too when we get there to that game. Dak may not play tonight as well because of injury. Based on all of the beat reporters, it sounds like Dak's going to play. I would trust those guys over. Here's the thing. Beat writers I tend to trust. The problem is when they all are in alignment on something, it could be a team dictated thing. The team could say, hey, just so you guys know, we're probably going to play Dak, and they're going to feed that out there and let all of them know and then switch it at the last moment. Either way, I don't think, obviously having Dak in the game is a huge advantage over Cooper Rush. I saw somebody, oh my God, on one of the major national networks say that the Cowboys not having Dak isn't a big deal and that this offense could run without him. And I feel like people should actually watch football before they comment on it, especially whenever you're paid to do it on national television. And this offense, I love Zeke, love the offensive line, but this offense is Dak's. It's Dak's and Kellen's. And if Dak doesn't play, that is a massive drop because he's the key cog in this. He's what makes it work. Now, without him, can they run the ball and do other things? Sure. The passing game loses all of its dynamic ability. And I love CeeDee Lamb and I love Amari Cooper, but for me, the Cowboys without Dak is they're playing with one leg basically instead of two. It's not that they can't get by with it, but it's not like taking Baker out. It hurts the Browns a little bit. You take Dak out and it hurts Cowboys a lot. So but for those long shots, usually 3 or so. If Ben hits those, it's game. Yeah, that's the weird thing about that Steelers game, man, is depending on the week and how Ben's arm feels depends on how that game could potentially go. But I just don't think they give him enough shots to be able to, and I think they're going to be able to run. I know that the Steelers are pretty high in DVOA against the run. I just don't believe that that's for real for them. So We'll keep it moving. Let's get through. I want to get through the next. Let's see. Eagles, Lions. We won't spend a ton of time on. 49ers, Bears. We'll spend a little bit on. But I want to get through some of these middle games pretty quickly because I do want to get to some of the fun games. We are supposed to go on the front page of Twitch at 11:15. We'll see if that happens. See what kind of influx we get from people. So, Ryan, I know you put picks ATS on Twitter, but would be awesome to list them here on the board as you go through. So this whole board is actually brand new, and this is something that I'm continuing to work on as we go. I think we're still only like 25 streams in at this point. I mean, I guess 8, 16, 24. Yeah. Yeah, we had like one stream, two streams before, so we're like 25 streams in. So I love the suggestion, Ryan. That's actually a really great idea to actually put the picks up there. Let me figure out how I can do that. I want to do that next week whenever we start going through these. Because putting those up there and then having people go, wait, why are you picking the Packers? I can't believe you picked the Packers. Why? And going back to those would be fun. All right, Eagles Lions. So this one's going to be interesting because Jalen Hurts has played very good in garbage time, very bad whenever it matters. And again, to me, everybody can go, "Oh, he's a terrible quarterback because look how he plays here. Oh, he could be a great quarterback, but they don't have everything around him because look what he can do in garbage time." To me, it's a very mid-level quarterback. He plays great sometimes, plays bad sometimes. He's not that consistent, very volatile week to week, game to game, matchup to matchup. That tells me he's an average quarterback or below average quarterback at best, right? I don't think that I think Jalen Hurts could potentially win you a game if you needed him to. I don't think that that's what you want him to do. I think the Eagles are kind of figuring that out. Miles Sanders is out this week, if I remember correctly. I think Miles is out and Gainwell is in for this week because there's a bunch of people talking about Gainwell being a big hit for fantasy for the Lions. So again, it's not about just running the ball. I do think they just need to figure out how to take some pressure off of Hurts. Hurts loves to throw those go routes all the time. He loves to underthrow those go routes, if we're being specific. He has been better about that the last few weeks. He has been trying to stretch those a little bit, and he's actually overthrown people a couple of times, which is tough to do because he does have some very fast receivers. So, not as much on the run game this week, simply because they are a better team than the Lions. There are a bunch of people on the Lions this week. I have thought about it, and I understand why some people are picking the Lions. I just don't know. Here's the thing. The one matchup for the Lions for me is this offensive line. And if they can protect and keep the Eagles from being able crossover, that's what I'm thinking. The Eagles aren't Lions bad. If the one way that the Lions can win is they have to be able to block the Eagles up front, which I think they can do. Their offensive line isn't terrible. And the Eagles haven't impressed me in terms of their ability to get a pass rush without Brandon Graham. I've heard a lot of people talk about how good this Eagles defense, the defensive line is, but the defense plays so vanilla that this is the one game where I feel like the Lions and Goff could actually come in with a clear game plan about what Goff needs to do. I think they come in with a clear game plan of what Goff needs to do. I think this is the type of game where Goff could actually execute on it because Philly is so bad at the linebacker position. They can be beat in the secondary, and they play so vanilla that there's nothing for Goff to think about. He's going to be able to get what he sees. He's going to see it pre-snap, and it's going to work out just as he thought post-snap because Philly doesn't do anything complicated on defense. So for me, that's just one of the situations where I can see why people are picking the Lions. It's hard for me to pick the Lions and the thing is I think the Lions are going to win at some point throughout the year, and this may be the game. But for me, it's just the Eagles play. I mean, they play a lot of They play a lot of zone coverage, and they don't necessarily mix it up. They play the least amount of man coverage in the league. And if Goff knows what holes he can throw into and can get what he sees post snap, then yeah. I mean, the Eagles mix it up between two high and one high a little bit here and there, but it's not like they rotate after the snap. They show you what they're going to do, and then they do that. So if the Eagles can start to mix it up a little bit against Goff, I think that they're going to be just fine. Um, this feels like like I said, Jalen Hurts plays very well in garbage time. When you're playing against the Lions, it's garbage time for 60 minutes. So I would expect Hurts to have a good game. They're going to be able to throw. We talked about it. The Lions can't pass rush. They can't cover. They're slow on defense. Like, they're just not there yet on defense. I think I'm allowing all of the other people picking the Lions to influence me, because for me, I feel like the Eagles are a bad matchup. I feel like this is the type of game where Hurts gets, 3 deep touchdowns um, on this one. And so for me, I know the Lions have played everybody close, and they continue to cover against even good teams. But we did pick them to not cover and to get whipped against Cincinnati. I feel like this is kind of the same thing, where you've got a good enough quarterback, you've got speed at wide receiver, and that could potentially be a very bad problem for Detroit. And I know that they want to try to run the ball. Let me see. I want to check specifically on Phillies. I mean, Philly's 29th in DVOA against the run. They're 19th against the pass. I would expect DeAndre Swift, Jamal Adams to have a solid game this week. But I think Lions are 4-3 against the spread. That's actually a really interesting stat, Ryan. But here's the thing: those four that they've won have been big ones, right? Like against the Rams, against the Ravens, against games where they're like, oh my God, the Lions actually played. The whole game is It is the whole game against the Lions is garbage time. Whether it's whether it's Atlanta or Detroit, like the whole game is garbage time. Basically, that's how you've got to treat it. So I know everybody's on the Lions to actually win and upset. I got to take the Eagles. I got to take the Eagles to cover here. The line was actually 3.5 for the Eagles before, and it's moved to 3. So I'm taking the Eagles -3. 9.5, 7.5, 10, 16.5 for the W's. Yeah, those big lines like that never are the ones that they can get it. So isn't garbage time when the outcome is set. Third stringers come in, like loves to take a knee after a good pack game. Husky. So yeah, so garbage time. What garbage time means is, and Husky, you're from Norway, right? If I remember correctly. So garbage time is when one team is up by a large Netherlands. That's what it was. Sorry, got the N right. So garbage time is when a team is up by many touchdowns, right? So whether usually 3 or 4 touchdowns, and that means that they start playing a very soft defense. They start playing like a prevent defense, and they start bringing guys back off the line of scrimmage, and that allows the other quarterback to be able to rack up a whole bunch of yards, because if they're up by 3 or 4 touchdowns, they're just trying to drain the game. They don't want you to, they don't much cushion. Yep, exactly. So they're going to give a ton of cushion. They're going to allow the other team to move the ball, but they're going to allow them to do it in short plays. Like if they want to get 4 or 5 yards, sure, get your 4 or 5 yards. But every time you get it, you're going to get tackled in bounds. The clock's going to keep running. It's going to shorten the game. And it makes it harder for them to come back. They just don't want those big strike plays where you're scoring at a very, very, very quickly, because that's the only way to come back from being down 3 or 4 scores, right? Is those really quick scores. So I'm going to take the Lions, or I'm sorry, I'm going to take the Eagles, in that particular game. I know everybody else is on the, I know everybody else is on the Lions. I just can't get behind it yet. and I've picked the Lions to cover in certain situations, but not I don't see it this week. So, all right, 49ers Bears. Truton 20, welcome in. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for the follow. So 49ers Bears. This is actually a pretty intriguing game to me. So I don't think the 49ers defense is bear down. Okay, Husky's a Bear fan. I like it. So I don't think the 49ers defense is very bad. We don't know who have they announced who's playing today, but for the 49ers. Because last I heard it was Garoppolo or Lance. So here's the thing. Garoppolo is probably the guy for now. I think Garoppolo ends up being in as the quarterback today. I think at some point Shanny's going to get tired and it's time for Trey Lance to take over. I haven't seen who is actually playing in this game today. Who's supposed to be starting. I was following it till like Wednesday. So if anybody knows, I'm happy to listen. Let's see. Blind Girl does. Is it a little wrong since Nagy isn't there? I really want them to win, but that when he's back, I want them to keep losing until he gets fired. No, not at all. Not at all, Blind Girl. I think that's what a lot of people are really expecting to happen is, hey, Nagy's not there, so they should be much, much better this week. Now listen, again, Nagy's been bad. Laser was a little bit better as the play caller. He's basically Laser's going to be calling the plays again today. The problem is they're calling the same terrible plays. It's just a new person calling the same terrible plays. Fields has not been good. Like if you strip away everything else, right? Just strip away how bad his offensive line is, how bad his play calling has been. In a vacuum, looking at Fields' play, he hasn't been good either. Now, he got absolutely just mopped up last week against the Bucks, and they just left him in and let him let him ride it. But I do think that he's got to be better himself. He can't be so all or nothing. He wants to take the big play. He wants to hold on to the football. They've got to get him more in a timing type of offense of 1, 2, 3, hit the top of your drop and then get the ball out. Like that's what he needs to be working on. And then he also needs to understand pressures and protections, because until he understands those two things, it's not going to be good for him. So they all around on offense, they need to be better. They do run the ball pretty well, which I think is going to be huge in this game. They've got to be able to run the ball, or else the 49ers and that defensive line are going to be able to come after Fields, and it's going to be a massacre. In the same way that it was last week. The other problem in this game is for the 49ers. 49ers can't get anything done on offense. They are very out of sync, I guess is the best. They don't have a quarterback that can consistently deliver the ball. So for me, it's funny because I was watching the Kentucky Mississippi State game last night, so college football, and I realized that the 49ers are kind of similar to the way Kentucky plays. They love to run a lot of RPO. They love to run. They try to run the football more than they pass. They have a solid defense that can help stop it, but they don't have a quarterback that can complete a simple pass. Until they get a quarterback that can complete a simple pass, especially on third down, I can't get behind this offense and think that they're going to do anything special. So Garoppolo hasn't been there, and it's funny because I'm reading It's Better to Be Feared by Seth Wickersham, the book about the Brady and Belichick era and separation, and they talk a good amount. I'm just getting through the whole Jimmy Garoppolo section and Garoppolo being in New England, and they're about to try. I think they just traded him. So like they thought Garoppolo was the guy in New England. And the trade actually came from Robert Kraft, not from Belichick. Belichick wanted Jimmy G and thought that they should be done with Brady. And Kraft said, nope, we are trading Jimmy G. And that's how it's going to be. And so they ended up trading Jimmy G to Kyle Shanahan. And Kyle Shanahan thinks that he's the guy and has thought that he's the guy. So it's really, really crazy. Megavoid, welcome in. I think that's typed. So we'll see. I think here's the thing. I think the Bears have the ability to run in this game. I think if they can run the ball, it should be a low scoring game. This is the lowest total of the week, 40.5. By a mile. I think the next closest game is 43. So yeah, so this should be a running game. This should be a running game on both sides. Solid defenses on both sides. I've talked about how I like the Bears defense. Blind Girl, thank you so much for the follow. Appreciate it. Yeah, so I just, for me, it's all about the Bears offensive line. Can they keep Fields upright? Can they allow Fields to do what he needs to do? Because the 49ers secondary can be attacked. Their linebackers can be attacked. Fred Warner actually played a good game last week. Salo, welcome in. Appreciate the follow. For me, the 49ers, they really miss Raheem Mostert. If they had Raheem Mostert and could hit those big plays in the running game, I think that solves everything that they need to do. Not everything, but most of everything that they need to do at the running back position and at the quarterback position, because now they don't have to rely on it. I think Trey Lance is a better fit for this offense in the way that it is now, but I don't think that he's ready. So I do think that it's going to be a Jimmy G situation probably for a while. If Jimmy G doesn't play well today, which I don't anticipate that he does, because the Bears do get a good amount of pressure. They don't get a good amount of pressure, but when they do get pressure, they get sacks. They have one of the lower pressure rates in the league, but as far as pressure rate to sack rate, they have a huge sack rate. So if they get through, they're getting the quarterback down. So Jimmy G is going to have to be aware of that. I do think that Jalen Johnson's a really good player in the secondary. This is one of the better defenses. They haven't played like it the last couple of weeks, but I still believe that they're pretty solid. If for some reason the 49ers come out and blow them out, I'll back off my Bears take of that their defense is actually good. Khalil Mack could have himself a day today. So I'll keep an eye on that. For me, with Niners, Niners are -4. I just don't feel like they have the ability to. I just don't feel like they have the ability to do what they need to do to get to -4 today. Mac is out. When did that happen? Oh, that's right. I totally forgot about that. Yes, you're absolutely right. Foot injury. Well, in that case, because I think that he's what makes the D without a dominant pass rush. I don't think the Bears can do anything. Yeah, I got to take San Francisco -4. I think that the offense may look better, especially from the Bucs game, right? Because the Bucs were just such a bad matchup, and we talked about that. Todd Bowles. So Fields' two problems are recognizing pressure up front and managing his protections, and getting rid of the football in conjunction with those two things. It's a bad matchup against a team like the Bucs, who are very talented up front, love to run a bunch of complicated stuff, and Todd Bowles is just really good at what he does and mixes it up front. And that was just a massacre waiting to happen. And really what caused that game to get out of hand very, very quickly. So I think that San Francisco could potentially do the same thing. I got to take San Francisco -4, especially because Mac is out. Isaac the Goat, welcome in. Thanks for the follow. Appreciate it. Crossover. Let's see. Blind Girl does. Mac is out and foot injury in practice. That's right. Crossover. It's an Elijah Mitchell type of day. San Francisco also gets Trent Williams back. I'm curious to see what Trent Williams looks like. I'm curious to see how if he's rusty at all. Blind Girl does. Hicks might be back though, And Bear to Bear, as I call him, is pretty good at being a problem for the opponent. Here's the thing. Daryl Mooney could be a problem for the 49ers and the way that the 49ers want to play defense, right? So, um, for me, like looking at the 49ers defense, I think they get a good amount of pressure up front. Bosa's just an absolute monster. But um, the 49ers, they will rotate how their coverages are behind everything that they do up front. They'll play some one high shell, two high shell. They'll play some they love to play quarters and keep the ball in front of them. And the difference is right. So if you play too high and you want to keep everything in front of you, which I would be interested to see if they do today, if they want to play more aggressive. If you play too high, then that means there's two high safeties and there's five underneath defenders, right? Playing in either zone or man. They're playing in that central area. When you play quarters, that basically means you now have four high, which opens up, it keeps everything in front of you. And now you have four high that they can play down. But in that middle area now you've got less defenders. So if you've got four high, then now all of a sudden you've only got three to cover that middle area. So it's a little bit softer defense, but if you play aggressive with your corners, you can kind of manage it a little bit. And so specifically for this game, I feel like they're going to play a little bit more aggressive. I don't think they're going to let Fields just sit back there in the pocket because he's been the worst quarterback. He's been the worst quarterback in the league whenever it comes to playing under pressure. And last week or the game against the Bucks definitely did not help. So you'll mean like calling the mic, et cetera. Yeah. So Husky. So not all quarterbacks manage call the protections, but a quarterback has to be aware. And it was funny. You actually heard Drew Brees talk about it with the Mannings on the Monday night podcast or sidecast or whatever you want to call it. Right. So Drew Brees talked about how he couldn't imagine not calling the protections himself, not identifying the mic, sliding the line left and right. The Saints don't want Jameis to do that. They want Jameis to focus on the secondary and what's going on there. Um, Fields is not ready to be able to call that right now. The issue is that he needs to be aware of it. He needs it, even though he's not calling it, he needs to understand what is being called and why it's being called. Because with that, he's got to put it in his head, hey, they're moving the protection to the left. That means the quarterback is now responsible for the edge guy. And he's got to know that if that guy comes, he's responsible to get rid of the football before that guy gets there. The problem is Fields doesn't understand that yet. He doesn't get it. It's not a part of his game yet. And the game is mentally moving too fast for him at this point. When he gets off running, he's as athletic as anybody and is phenomenal running the ball. He's a great thrower of the football. He hasn't been as accurate in the past couple of weeks. He hasn't been as accurate in the past couple of weeks specifically because he's not as confident in what he's seeing and what he's throwing. And confidence is a big factor whenever it comes into accuracy. So I got to see some evidence of Fields making progress in the next couple of games for me to be able to get behind the Bears. So QC man, go Titans. Welcome in. Go Titans. That's one of the more intriguing matchups this week for me, QC man. Isaac the Goat, you're welcome. Just hopped in and listened to football stuff. I like listening to sports no matter what it is. Appreciate that. Thank you. This is you're not going to get all the BS that you get on all the major networks here. We're going to talk specifically about the football and the games and the matchups and the things that matter to how these games are going to play out, right? And hopefully we're fairly close on what we think is going to happen. So welcome, man. Appreciate you hanging out. Good point. Hicks is always a problem for offenses. Yeah. I don't. Hicks is good, right? I like Hicks a lot. I just don't know that that against this offensive line that Hicks is going to be a major problem, especially with his first game back. We talked about how players coming back on their first games can be a little bit rusty. He could end up being a huge part of this game, and if he ends up having some, getting through the offensive line of scrimmage, then I do think that the 49ers will start to work around him and work to the edges instead of straight up the middle. But I mean, with a lot of the zone run game that they run, they will be able to get away from Hicks if they really want to. Sexy, do you think the Buffalo defense hindered by weather? I haven't looked at the Buffalo. Let's see. Um, Buffalo weather. Let's check their weather real quick. Actually, let's see what it is right now. Let's see. It's 50 degrees, winds blowing 8 miles per hour. It doesn't seem to be that bad. Is it supposed to get worse? Sexy. Zach Pascal, 2 TDs today, and Indy winning. I'm not going to comment on any of that because I do think that there is a really interesting matchup there. Let's see. Winds are going to pick up throughout the afternoon, so 10 to 15 miles per hour during the game for Buffalo. I mean, I think it. I don't. The problem is I think with Buffalo, I think there's some specific things that Miami does that they're going to take away. Tua loves one particular pass route, and we'll talk to it whenever we get to that game. He loves one particular pass route that Buffalo will take away today. 1,000% know that they will take away and dare Tua to beat them deep, and we'll see how that works. Joey Tribbiani, welcome in. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming in. Thanks for chatting. When is the 49ers? Where is the 49ers game being played? It's in Chicago. Colts favored by 2.5. Why? We'll talk about it. It's actually Colts favored by 3 now. Is where the line's at right now, as far as what I'm looking at. So we'll see. But we can talk about that. I mean, the Colts are ascending, right? They've played 3 or 4 really good weeks right now. And it's hard for me to take a lot from the Indy San Francisco game last week because it was so waterlogged. I just don't know that there's a lot. Wentz had at least 10 turnover worthy plays, and they got away with a lot. And I also think that San Francisco showed that they can move the ball on them. They did it for 2 drives, and they chose not to run those particular set of plays except for those 2 drives. And if they had done it, it was funny. I heard Sam Monson from PFF say it felt like one of those games where you were better off not having the ball than having the ball, because if you had the ball, you're more likely to be able to do it. So, Joey, where are you from? So I'm in the Tampa Bay area. We got a pretty good amount of people here. So for me, my name is Joe. I am NFLosophy on Twitch and on Twitter. I am a former operations guy for the Buccaneers, and after I was under Raheem Morris, and after the Raheem Morris regime, I decided to stick around in Tampa Bay. So now I sit here and I talk football with you guys on Sundays, and it's an absolute blast to do so. Way less stress on this side of it, I will tell you that much. So welcome in. Hope you stick around. We'll talk about matchups. You can see what games we've already been through, but we'll talk about all the matchups for all of the rest of the games, and then we'll do a quick recap at the end. We just finished up with Bears Niners, and I'm taking the Niners -4. Who was it? I saw. Where'd you go? I think it was Michael. Michael said that the Niners are terrible against the spread so far this season. So that does make me a little bit nervous, but I do think that the 49ers are probably. I think the Bears. I think the Bears and Niners are both pretty bad against the spread probably this year so far. Sexy Ridley's out. Is he? Are we at inactives? We're not in inactives yet. Let me see. Yeah, 1-5 against the spread. That makes sense. I think the Bears are probably pretty close to being. I mean, they're probably 2-4 against the spread or something like that. All right, let's move along. Let's keep it moving. We're about halfway through. We got an hour and a half or so left before kickoff. We'll be here all the way up until kickoff. So Panthers Falcons. This is though 3-4 against the spread. That makes sense. I'm a big Bears fan from Illinois. Welcome in, Isaac the Goat. It's gonna be a long. I know you and Blind Girl and Husky are all Bears fans. I hope the best for you this season. Hopefully you have lots of drinks prepared for game days, because you're probably going to need them. At least for this week, you don't have to look at Nagy on the sidelines. That's one good thing. So many drinks. I love it, Husky. So yeah, at least this week you don't have to. We'll see what it looks like whenever Nagy's not there. I don't know if it'll be better or worse, or if because Nagy could have said, "Here's all the things I want you to do," and expects them to do it, and then they could do it and still look terrible, or they could end up high positive. What a name. Welcome in, first time chatter. So Nagy could tell them exactly what to do, and they could say, "Screw you, we're gonna do what we want," and end up looking amazing. I mean, I'm gonna need 2, maybe 3 bottles of rum. It'll be fine. I'm used to the disappointment Bears fans would say, "Oh, okay, well, yeah." If you've been a Bears fan for that long, then it's been a lot of ups and downs. It's just, you know, uh, it's at least there's at least hope with Justin Fields, though I would say low expectations are the key to happiness. So I wouldn't get too far ahead of yourselves because Fields doesn't look like he's there yet. All right, Panthers Falcons. So for me, this game is actually one of the more intriguing ones because the Falcons look like they're ascending while the Panthers look like they're descending. We talked about it a little bit earlier. So for me, the key for the Panthers in this particular game is Sam Darnold gets to face the Atlanta defense, and the Atlanta defense is great at making bad quarterbacks look good. They did it with Tua last week, and I do think that Sam Darnold could have some success today. They still don't have CMC. I think that DJ Moore is going to be a problem for this defense. I even think Terrace Marshall and Robbie Anderson could end up having a decent game today as well. This is an Atlanta defense that is probably the worst pass defense in the NFL, along with the Lions, and I don't anticipate Carolina having an issue moving the ball today. The big question is, can the Falcons keep the pressure on offense, right? So the Panthers defense, they get Stephon Gilmore back today was the latest report that I saw. And if they get Stephon Gilmore back and Gilmore is full go, if he's a little bit rusty, could be an issue, but that could cause some problems for Atlanta. And Kyle Pitts is emerging as a weapon. And for him to be able to come back and have a strong game today is going to be massive for the Falcons. They need him, and we have to treat Kyle Pitts like a wide receiver at this point. Phil Snow is really good at mixing up fronts, and I think that's going to cause some problems for Atlanta. So Phil Snow, the defensive coordinator for Carolina, has been really good about getting free rushers to quarterback. That's a big matchup because Atlanta might struggle blocking a really solid pass rush offensive line for Carolina. Plus the way that they're able to use their linebackers in blitzing. So Atlanta could struggle on offense today, and I think the Panthers are going to be fine against the Falcons. I'm surprised to see that the Falcons were -3. It is in Atlanta. I'm not totally out on the Panthers yet. Especially with the secondary, whether in Gilmore, Dante Jackson, AJ Bouye, I think that they're pretty solid secondary. And I think that if the Falcons are going to win it today, it's going to be on the back of Cordero Patterson. Cordero Patterson's going to need to have probably 200 yards and a couple of touchdowns for Atlanta to be able to win this. So for me, I'm probably taking, I got to take I'm going to take the Panthers to not only cover, but the Panthers to win in this particular game. It just feels like a game where the Panthers kind of turn it around. It sounds like they know what they've got in Sam Darnold and that they've got to manage that better. And so I feel like they're gonna come out with a solid game plan. My only concern about that is I think Arthur Smith has been doing a much better job recently of figuring out how to architect this offense and call plays. So yeah, I just don't think that I don't think he's I don't think he's played very many good teams recently, and it's probably a little bit of a it's looked better than probably what it's deserved. So positive. Okay, I play middle school football. What are some tips you have for a young lineman? Also, should I stream today? I mean, you should always stream. Always stream. Just get out there and get your reps in whenever it comes to streaming and whenever it comes to practice, right? So the best advice that I can give to somebody that's young and playing is go practice more, whatever it is that Find somebody that can lead you in the right direction and that's going to give you honest feedback and tell you what you're good at, what you're bad at, and then go figure out how to practice those things. And you can practice the good stuff and the bad stuff. So, yeah. Husky, after my fandom rise and fall to the Texans, I can take on everything. Oof. Well, you're still going to have Deshaun Watson come end of year. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Hammering the Panthers, it sounds like. Yeah, I'm not sold on Atlanta being good yet, and I'm not sold on Carolina being bad yet. So for me, that adds up to a Carolina win. Now, I have overestimated Carolina in the last few weeks, so take that all with a grain of salt. But I'm still on Carolina for this week. But I said the same thing about Arizona. I've underestimated them, and then all of a sudden I'm like, yeah, this is the game. This feels like the game that they just can't get it done. So print that name of yours on the shirt might scare some of the other. Yeah, there you go. Primal, thanks for the follow. Welcome in. Hope you're having a good Sunday. All right, so we're through about half of our games so far, and we got to speed it up a little bit because I do want to talk about some of these better games through before we get to the 1:00, and we've got about an hour and 20 minutes to do so. Hour and 18. Dolphins Bills. So this is the Bills favored by 14. Total is 49 in this game. I'm flat out gonna go Bills. So I don't trust Tua. And here's the thing, the Bills are so well coached. They're going to come into this game and they're going to know exactly what Tua wants to do, and they're going to take that away from him. Tua throws more out routes than any quarterback in the NFL. It's his number one throw. Now, are the Bills going to end up getting burned by an out and up at some point? Yes, but they're going to continue to take away those out routes because they know that if Tua is trying to loft the ball up, their safeties are good enough and fast enough to be able to get under it. I don't think they're going to be concerned about the weapons of Miami as far as their skill positions are concerned. Miami's not great. They're one of the worst offensive lines. Tua's not going to have time to be able to throw the ball down the field very much. So when he does, he's just going to have to heave it up. And we talked about it, like anything beyond 15 yards, he's got to put his entire body into, which isn't great for trying to throw downfield under pressure. That's going to lead to some problems for Tua. It's going to lead to some problems for Miami. Miami's only hope is that they come in and maybe they get one of Josh Allen's kind of off games where he's not as accurate as he can be. And then they can play defense behind that, maybe get a couple of turnovers and keep it close. But for me, this feels like a Buffalo minus 14 pretty easily. I have no faith in Miami in that offensive line right now. Worst offensive line in the NFL. Who would you play with Ridley out? It depends on who else you got. Sexy. QC man, pretty sure Dak will play, but here questionable. Yeah, he's been questionable all week. The beat writers, and we mentioned this a little bit. It's great to listen to the beat writers because they know that team better than anybody else. They all seem to be on the same page that Dak's going to play. The problem is sometimes beat writers are all on the same page because the team's telling them all the same thing behind the scenes. Hey, he's going to play, he's going to play, he's going to play. And that's just to be misleading to the other team. So here's the thing. Dak being out hurts. I don't think that I don't think the Vikings spent any extra time on saying, if Cooper Rush is in, how does this offense change? They don't really care. It's basically a run game at that point, and I think they're going to be fine. And we'll talk specifically about some fun matchups in that game. I think that one's going to be really interesting. I love that Dallas-Minnesota matchup. Out of Patterson, Gage, or Pitts, it seems like that game flops. I would take Patterson. I think Patterson's the key to that offense today. I think that Carolina comes in and they have a game plan for Pitts and say, hey, we can't let Pitts beat us. If we don't let Pitts beat us, then we've got a shot at this one. And Patterson's probably, the guy that gets a good amount of touches in that particular game. All right, moving along. Cincinnati, New York Jets. Oh, wait, that's not right. Did I miss one? Oh, no. Sorry. I just didn't mark it off. That's what it is. All right. Dolphins, Bills. We talked about that one. Taking Bills minus 14. Bengals, Jets. So for me in this particular game, it's Cincinnati minus 11 in New York. Total is 43. So this says that it's going to be a low scoring game, but Cincinnati's favored by 11. This is the epitome of a letdown game, right? And I don't really buy into like the esoteric ideas of like a letdown game of like, oh, they just came off a big win against the Ravens and now they think that they're really good, and then they come into New York and they don't play as well. Um, I don't typically buy into that. I feel like this is the perfect spot for them to do that if something like that were to happen. The problem is I just don't think the Jets are very good. And I don't think the Jets have enough on offense nor on defense to be able to manage anything against this Cincinnati team. They can just continue to throw the ball to Jamar Chase. I would expect the Jets to do something smart in terms on defense of hey, let's just double Chase and make sure Chase doesn't beat us, and let's figure out how we're going to guard everybody else. And make Burrow throw elsewhere. The problem is I think he's going to be able to find Uzoma or Boyd or Higgins. Joe Mixon should have a pretty good game today. So um, Kitty goes Mao. After that game last week, I'm hyped. No letdown game. I mean, they looked so good last week. And here's the thing. The game from last week, the problem that I've had with the Bengals is their coaching, their strategy, and their play calling. I know that, well, and their O line to a degree. We know that their defense is solid but not great. Their offensive line is a little iffy, but they've been able to play around it and get past it. The question I've always had is can Zach Taylor really lead this offense? And last week they came in with a hell of a game plan. They knew exactly what they needed to do, what they wanted to do. I thought they came in with a very good defensive game plan as well. So there's I want to say the Jets cover this. Um, I want to say the Jets cover this. Like I feel like 11 is a lot of points, and I continue to take these larger lines and say that teams aren't going to cover, that the underdogs won't be able to cover. But I just again, I just don't see that there's a way that the Jets hang in there, especially after they got ripped up by the Pats last week. So I got to go Cincinnati minus 11. Even though I do feel like this could be a letdown game for them, this is probably closer. Like Cincinnati should win this by 3 or 4 touchdowns, but it probably ends up in the 2 touchdown range simply because I don't think they come out firing on all cylinders. All right, Tennessee, Indiana. So this is going to be one of the more intriguing matchups, and we'll talk about this one specifically. So Tennessee has shown that they are willing to adapt their defense to whatever it is that they need to do. Of course, that makes a lot of sense. Vrabel against Vrabel again as a Bill Belichick disciple. That's specifically what Bill Belichick does: is say, "Hey, we need to take away the best thing that the other team likes to do, wants to do, those type of things, and then from there we'll go and um, we'll go from there and we'll make sure that the other team has to figure out other ways to win, not winning in ways that they want to win, right?" And I think that's a big piece for the Titans this week. How do the Colts want to win? Now, the problem is the Colts have done a really good job of both running the football and throwing the football. Carson Wentz has played 3 of the best games that he's played prior to last week. Last week was not one of the best games that he's ever played. Probably closer to the bottom of the games that he's ever played. So for me, with the Titans being able to take away whatever they want to take away, the question is what specifically do they take away? And I think the idea is that they probably want to take away the run game, because if they are able to take away Jonathan Taylor, it puts a lot of pressure on Carson Wentz, who has shown, sorry, who has shown Carson Wentz that he will absolutely give the ball up in a hurry to everybody, because he had at least 10 turnover worthy plays last week. I thought that was absolutely insane, because he was just handing the ball off, right? Like he literally handed the ball to a linebacker last week on one of those plays. So for me, how do you end up defending that? I think you have to take away the run. And I think you have to play a little bit of of a softer defense behind it. So look for like a cover 3 type of defense today from the Titans. Single high safety, play those guys on the edges, and make them play a little bit softer. Keep the ball in front of you, because it's like we talked about with Patrick Mahomes. If you have those guys, and now I'm kind of rethinking this, right? So if you have those guys that are back there and there's two deep safeties, any ball that Carson Wentz throws that's not on point is going to end up being tipped, knocked around, potentially end up in a fumble or an interception. So for me, it feels like that's something that the Titans are going to have to decide. Do they want to load the box and take away Jonathan Taylor? Or are they okay with Jonathan Taylor? Do they feel like that they can stop Jonathan Taylor up front without having to load the box? The Colts offense, their offensive line is getting healthy. It's proven that it's going to be pretty solid. It just depends. To me, this game really just depends on Carson Wentz. Now, Frank Reich has done a wonderful job with Wentz over the last few weeks, and putting him in a position to be successful. Wentz tried to just torch that game last week, and couldn't do so. So for me, how we know what the Titans are going to do on offense, right? They're going to run the ball. Even if you load the box against them, they now have two big weapons in Julio Jones and AJ Brown. Is Julio out this week? I think I saw that Julio was supposed to be out this week. I want to double check this. Because if Julio's out, that stings a little bit, because they will be able to rotate coverage over to AJ Brown. Yeah, Julio's out. Yep. So with Julio out, that means they're probably going to double up on AJ Brown, force somebody else to beat them. Ryan Tannehill is playing pretty well, right? So I do think that Ryan Tannehill is playing very well. I think you saw that against the Bills. He played pretty well in a much larger capacity against the Chiefs, much larger capacity. They got him throwing the ball a little bit more. So he can get it done. He absolutely can get it done. If he has to. He struggled a little bit when he doesn't have both of his guys. He prefers it. It's been a major deal that they end up having both Julio and AJ Brown there. So both are questionable. Not sure if hey buddy. Sorry, my dog just came in. I do think that they that with Husky, with both are questionable. Not sure if there will be. I don't see AJ Brown on the injury report, so I think he's going to be fine. It looks like AJ Brown's probably going to be a go today, and I haven't heard anything different. So I fully expect AJ Brown, which is going to be huge for them. And again, the Colts defense, small but fast. If you can use misdirection, you can get them out of the way. I think with the Titans offensive line and their run blocking, Derrick Henry, and their willingness to run both straight downhill as well as with misdirection, I think it's a horrible matchup for the Colts. I think on defense, they're going to have to commit 8, 9, 10 to the box to be able to stop Derrick Henry. And then when they do, Tannehill's going to be able to beat him up top. I understand why everybody is on the Indy bandwagon right now. They are ascending in terms of talent, and I think they've played very, very well over the last few weeks. However, I'm just not sure that Indy is a good matchup. I do think Indy can beat some of the bad teams, but for me, this is a bad matchup for the Colts. I think this is the specific type of matchup that is bad for them. The only thing is if they can put up a good amount of points on offense, the Colts will potentially have a good run today. But I don't think they can do that, because I think the Titans are basically going to run them out of any too high that they want to play. Tennessee missing their entire defense. I'm not that concerned about it, honestly. I think their best defense, their defense hasn't been good all season, Sexy. They haven't been able to rush the passer. They haven't been able to play well in the secondary. They just have not been good. I think the reason that they've been any good at all on defense for the Titans is simply because they've been able to run the ball with Derrick Henry, and it puts way less pressure on him. So this could end up being a running game. I just feel like the Colts need to open up their offense and be as aggressive as they can to be able to win this game. I just don't think they can pull it. I'm gonna go. I'm surprised that the Colts are the actual favorites here in Indy. So again, -3 in Indy says that the Colts and Titans are even teams. I don't think they're even teams. I think the Titans are much better than the Colts. And they're definitely not 3-point dogs against the Colts. I think in Indy, this is a potentially even game. If this were in Tennessee, I'm taking Tennessee by 6 points probably. Watch Metcalf go ham. I mean, it's possible. Man, I gotta take the Titans. I'm gonna take the Titans to cover and Titans to win. I'm not there yet on Indy. I'm very much a evidence based type of person, so I'm not willing to move off of my priors on either of these teams yet. I need one more week. One more week. What? Indy for dub? I don't see it, man. I just don't see it sexy. There's nothing that you can tell me about this game that tells me that Indy ends up with this dub. Frank Reich is the only reason that I might believe in this offense right now, because he's got them working well in both phases on offense, and they've got an offensive line that's getting healthy. But I don't think they have this defensive matchup for them. Their defense is a horrible matchup. Horrible matchup against Tennessee. Derrick Henry may have 300 yards today, because they're going to be able to run misdirection and downhill against this defense, and they're going to be just fine in doing it. Tannehill, they started to open it up against the Chiefs last week, right? Because they said, hey, we know the Chiefs are going to load the box. When you load the box and we have Julio and A.J. Brown one-on-one on the outside, we trust Tannehill to make those throws against your secondary. This week, they're going to come in and they're going to go, we're going to pound the rock and you're not going to be able to stop us. Like, Tennessee's going to adapt from week to week, and I think that you're going to see that this week. I think you're going to see that they played well against KC and against Buffalo, and those weren't flukes. I think they have the right kind of offense to be able to play against anybody. I just don't trust the Colts defense. They're going to get run over, man. I feel like it's inevitable. And I'll come back here on Tuesday and say, hey, I was totally wrong if that's not the case. Tennessee 2-1 against the spread on the road. I feel like they're going to be 3-1. This feels like an easy one. Now, every time I say this feels like an easy one, it ends up going the opposite way. So I might have just, jinxed myself there. All right, Patriots Chargers. This is a fun one. This is another fun one this week. We'll have to get through this one pretty quickly. How many we got? 1, 2, 3. We'll probably skip Jags Seahawks. We'll touch on it. We'll touch on Broncos Washington, but we'll move through those. We'll take those two in like less than 5 minutes each. Patriots Chargers, I do want to spend a second on. This is a really intriguing matchup because we talked about it early in the show. Everybody knows what the Patriots game plan is going to be coming into this game. They're gonna deploy the same game plan that they deployed against the Bucs and against the Cowboys. 2 high safeties. Don't let them beat you deep. Keep everything in front of you. Keep everything short, easy, quick. Don't let Mike Williams beat you deep. And then the Chargers have one of the worst run defenses in the NFL. They're really going to try to get the run game going. The Patriots are. So Damian Harris could have a big day today. Now, the Chargers are really good at getting to the ball and trying to get it out. So he's got to be very careful about his ball security. In New England, ball security is job security, right? And if he starts popping it out, if the ball starts popping out, Ramondre Stevenson, if he's active today, could end up having a big game as well. They're not going to take a ton of chances in this particular game because I think they know that they can't. And they're going to try to control the game, control the clock with the run game. My question is can the Chargers, with the Chargers having a bye week, can they come out and figure out how to stop the run? And what did they do to figure out how to stop the run? Because they have to improve that run defense, because the ability to run the ball against the Chargers is going to be very, very important for teams against them, because there aren't a ton of defenses that can cover and not give up a ton of points against this Chargers offense with Justin Herbert, Big Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Jared Cook getting some looks, Austin Eckler having a good season. Like it feels like um this is just one of those games where the Chargers figure out. I have full faith in Brandon Staley to figure it out. Now, are they able to do it against a really smart team in the Patriots? That one's tough. Now, New England flying across country, playing in LA, that's going to cause a little bit of a problem too. New England tends to play games very, very closely. I think the Chargers are overall the better team. I think for me, New England, they just continuously play very, very close games, and I think it's going to be very important this week that that the Chargers switch kickers. Let go of Vizcaino, who had missed a ton of extra points, a few kicks. Now they have Dustin Hopkins, much better kicker. I think they're going to need all the points that they can get today, and it's going to be a much slower pace game. I'm taking the under on this one. This one's 49.5. I would take the under. It's moved back up to 50.5. I would also take the under on this one. But in terms of picks, man, I think simply because it's more than a full field goal, I would take the Patriots to cover in this one. I still like the Chargers to win. I'm not totally on board with how good the Patriots have looked. I think that they've played very well, architected some good game plans against solid teams. I just think that they're out coaching what their actual team is, right? What their game plan is. So they're out coaching their talent basically, and I think that's going to be very important for them going forward. I still don't see the Patriots as a playoff team yet. Just don't think they're there. They're eventually going to have to figure out how to open up this offense for Mac Jones, the whole dink and dunk and all that stuff. I know everybody's talking about Mac Jones like he's having this just incredible year, and his stats are up there in terms of volume. I'm He's playing better than the rest of the rookies. I just don't think that he's playing lights out football to the degree that everybody wants to praise him right now. I I don't understand why that is the case right now. Like if we go look, I want to see. Um Mac Jones, 70% completion rate. Average net yards per attempt is 6.05. That's not great. Not great at all. 9 TDs, 6 interceptions. I mean, that basically, if we're halfway through the season, that's 18 TDs and 12 picks. It's not particularly great. So I just his QB his overall rating right now is 92.8. His QBR is 53.6. Like everybody can praise Mac Jones all they want, and yes, he's a rookie and give him credit for that, but it's not like this guy's just beating down the NFL right now and position himself as a top 10 quarterback. He's not even close to that. So let's not get ahead of ourselves and think that he's going to be able to win the game all by himself, especially against the Chargers defense. It's pretty good against the pass. So for me, I'm gonna yeah, I'm gonna take the Patriots to cover, but Chargers to win on this one. All right, couple questions. Let's see. Tennessee gave up most slot TDs, yards, etc. That's an interesting stat. Jared Cook or Donald Parham? I'm probably taking Jared Cook. He's more likely to get a touchdown for me. Better yet, Gronk or Uzoma. Gronk's full go today. I like Uzoma because I think that finally a team is the Jets are gonna say we've got to put everybody we have on Jamar Chase or else they're gonna torch us. I think it's probably like an Uzoma, a Mixon / Uzoma day today. But if not Uzoma, then it's probably a big Higgins or a big Boyd day. But I would lean Uzoma. Browns by a TD. That's a pretty big statement. I think it's totally possible. It's absolutely possible, QC man. All right, let's keep going. Let's go. Jags Seahawks. All right, we're not going to spend much time at all on Jags Seahawks or Washington Broncos. If you want more in depth, like ask a question and we can talk about it. But I'm going to breeze through these games because we are running out of a little bit of time. and I want to leave enough time for the last three games, or well, really Bucks, Saints, and Cowboys, Vikings, because both of those are very interesting games for me. All right, Jags, Seahawks. So Jags coming off a bye week. They figured out that they can run the ball. They should be able to run the ball against the Seahawks. I think them going across country is going to be a problem for them. I just the Seahawks defense is bad. The offense isn't as good with Geno Smith. This is probably a closer game than what the Seahawks would like for it to be. But if they can't stop the run, the Seahawks have a real shot at getting beat here. Like, I'm not counting out the Jags to win this game yet. Now, do I actually think they do? Absolutely not. I'm going to take the Jags probably. I'm going to take the Jags +4 because I do think that they come in with a running game that's going to keep this close. All right, Jags +4. Washington, Denver. So Denver has proven that they're just not a very good football team. They're not good on offense. They're not good on defense. Now they've lost Von Miller. Teddy Bridgewater is a solid quarterback when he has receivers that can get open for him. Problem is he doesn't have those receivers to get open for him right now. And he's still trying to push the ball down the field. They can't seem to really get the run game going. I feel like that's the key to this for the Broncos is they've got to be able to run the ball because their offense outside of that isn't good enough. Their pass game is not good enough for them to do it. Washington's kind of starting to figure some things out other than the fact that they're still playing Taylor Heineke. I like some of the things that I'm seeing from Washington. Denver's favored by 4 in this game in Denver. Washington moved the football last week against the Packers. Now, again, I don't think the Packers defense is very good. I think their defense is managed by how the offense plays. So that's not a huge surprise to me. Washington was very fortunate with fumble luck last week. Very fortunate. I think they had 4 fumbles, all of which they recovered on their own. I think overall Denver's probably the better team right now, but I do think that Washington is actually making some adjustments where I don't think the Broncos are panicking yet to make adjustments. So I'm going to say Washington covers, and there's a real shot in an upset for Washington this week. Just because I don't think the Broncos are very good at all. So I'm going to take Washington +4. And that's crazy to me because we used to think that there were people that thought that Denver was one of the better teams in the league when they were at 3-0. The problem is they played the Jets, the Giants, and Jags, I think, and they've basically lost every game since. So I cannot jump on the Broncos bandwagon at all at this point. And I do think that Washington is figuring some things out. They're moving Landon Collins into the box more. They're rotating some of their coverages. Jamin Davis at linebackers is getting better. Jonathan Allen is probably the best defensive tackle on that, or probably the best defensive lineman that they have. Yes, over Chase, over Montez Sweat. Jags Seahawks pick. Jags Seahawks was Jags to cover +4. And then let's see. Yeah, I'm taking Washington +4 on this one too. There's a lot of games. There's a lot of games that are +4 plus, like there's 1, 2, 3, 4 games, 5 games that are 4 points, which is weird because usually when you're at 4, you move the line to 3 to keep it to at least allow for the time. Took your advice and started streaming. Awesome. If you're going to start streaming, I would probably suggest a name change. Positive. I don't know that there's going to be a lot of people that are interested in going to. Hopefully, you're streaming under a different name. I'll put it like that. But either way, good luck. Good luck to you. All right, Bucks Saints. So this is probably the premier matchup of the week. I think this is probably like the national game for everybody. Now, I want to talk about a few things specifically about this, and we'll get deeper into this one probably than we will most of them. Cowboys Vikings will probably do the same, and then we'll kind of breeze through Chiefs Giants. Actually, let's knock out Chiefs Giants real quick before we get into these last two. Chiefs Giants. I'm not I still think the Chiefs. I think the Chiefs are going to be able to figure it out. I'm curious if it takes them until the bye week to figure it out. If it does, because that's still not for another like 3 or 4 weeks. But if it does, then basically their season's pretty much over. So they've got to figure it out right now. Giants are pretty banged up. Offensive line, skill positions, no Saquon. Like the Giants are not as bad as everybody thinks, but the Chiefs aren't as bad as everybody thinks either. I still think the Chiefs probably take this one pretty easily. Chiefs are favored. The line's moved to -10 for the Chiefs. I don't think they're that. I think Daniel Jones keeps this closer. I think the Chiefs have shown that they're not there yet. And -10 for this game in the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season would be unthinkable. I really want to take the Chiefs -10, but it doesn't make sense. I think the Giants are good enough to cover. I feel like the Giants, Michael, you might, or Ryan, you might have to tell me about this, but I feel like the Giants have been pretty good against the spread this year. I feel like they've been very, very good against the spread. Whoever said Jamal Williams inactive? Yes, I think DeAndre Swift should have a big game. They'll use him in the run game, and sexy. I think DeAndre Swift will have a good 3-4 against the spread. Huh. Interesting. All right, I'm gonna go. I don't know. I don't know how I want to pick this game. All right, I'm gonna go Chiefs. It just doesn't. I feel like the reason I'm gonna pick the Chiefs is we talk about this every week. Is sometimes you don't look at the player matchups. You should always look at the coordinator matchups. Offensive coordinator versus defense coordinator versus offensive coordinator, on both sides, right? And for me, Andy Reid versus the Giants is too good. Um, and then Jason Garrett versus Allen is too good. So I just don't. I got to take KC -10. I still can't get off of them yet. I still feel like the Chiefs aren't that bad, and I feel the one problem is that the Giants secondary isn't terrible, and if the Chiefs figure out how to run the ball, they're going to be just fine. Let me double check. I want to see how. So the New York Giants are 22nd in rush DVOA on defense. So yeah, I feel like this is the game. Quez the Don. Hey, that's much much more appropriate. That's gonna be better. I think that's a good move for you, buddy. Do the Giants have the horses to keep up that too high shell all game and to bracket Tyreek and Kelsey? I don't think it's about bracketing Tyreek and Kelsey. I think it's the too high shell to keep them from getting beyond you. I think the problem is that the Giants like to take too many chances, even in their too high shell, that it's going to leave some opportunities for the Chiefs. Now, the Chiefs, if I see this, the way I always think of it is if I see it, the coaching staff has to see it too, right? I just have to assume that they're smarter than I am and that they're not missing this. And so for me, I do think that they're gonna see this. They're gonna figure out how to be a little bit not as aggressive. They'll still be aggressive, but not as aggressive. To kind of take away some of that variance that they've seen in the turnovers. Seth Kaiser wrote a big thing about how the Chiefs need to run the ball more against light boxes and safeties that are pressing off against play action. Yep. 1,000%. It's exactly what we talked about earlier, HP, was with the two high boxes or with the two high safeties that everybody is playing against the Chiefs now. The thing is any time that any pass is missed and it gets tipped up in the air, it's potential for an interception. And the Chiefs have had really unfortunate luck with those interceptions falling into the other team's hands. But it's also a product of a logical outcome, right? There's logic as to why that's happening because in too high, when balls are popped up in the air, there's more people to see it and go get it. Tip drills just naturally end up in the defensive hands more often when you're in too high versus when there's single high man coverage. Because you're in man coverage, you're more with the single high safety, you're more interested in making sure the guy gets tackled. Whereas in two high, you can be a little bit more aggressive if you're the underneath defender, and you have a safety behind you that's coming. If there's a throw over the middle and that there's a two high safety behind you, that safety is going to be coming to the football. And if you can just, instead of just having to tackle the guy, you can focus on trying to get to the football and pop it out. Now all of a sudden the safety's got a better shot, or the corner or the linebacker, somebody else that's around in that particular area. It's odd how Andy Reid hasn't made the adjustments already. I think they thought that they were just being unfortunate, Ryan. I think that they feel like, hey, we're playing the same way. We're just getting really unlucky, and it's going to turn back our way. The problem is luck can luck ends up going back. It can stay bad luck longer than you can stay sane, right? Like the luck can stay that bad. Now they've had really good luck the last 2 years, so there's evidence to say that they should have good luck. But I think that the regression is happening very, very distinctly for KC in terms of their turnover luck, and they have to just say, you know what, we gotta cut this stuff out, and we gotta pull back on it, and we gotta pull back on it, and because of that, I think we're gonna be much better off for it. So, yeah, I still gotta take the Chiefs, man. The Giants need to be aggressive in this game, and that's not who the Giants are as a coaching staff. So I just don't see it. Just don't see it. All right, let's. Is it this one? Yes, nailed it. Okay. All right. Let's go Bucs Saints. All right, so this is obviously with my previous history with the Bucs. This is going to be very, very fun. So before we get into this, thanks everybody for tuning in. Thank you guys for hanging out. My name is Joe. I am NFL Philosophy on Twitch and on Twitter. I'm a former Bucs guy. Worked in the NFL or in team operations in the NFL. Super excited for you guys to be here. This is what we do every week for pregame, is we go through all of the matchups, talk about who's actually going to win, what players are going to stand out. We'll touch on a little bit on fantasy if you have those questions, but for the most part, it's in real life football. For me, it's all about the matchups every single week. This is my favorite show of the week because we get to talk about the actual game of football and what teams are going to do. Love the chess match, love the strategy of it all. So, and I think that's so important in a league where the talent levels are so close. Even whenever you're talking about the top team in the NFL and the bottom team in the NFL, those two teams are way closer than, say, an Alabama and I don't know, mid-level team right now, like Nebraska, maybe. There's much bigger talent gaps there in college, and so you have to be much more precise, much more strategic in the NFL. That's why we break down the matchups every week, because I think that's what dictates the outcomes of games, along with the talent. But like I said, the strategic part of it is the fun part. All right, so Bucs Saints. So this one's going to be a good one. I saw somebody on a national actually on, I think it was ESPN. I'll just call them out for it, on ESPN, who said the Bucs need to be ready because they're not going to be able to run the ball against the Saints defense. And I could imagine the people in the Bucs facility going, "You think we want to run the ball? That's what you think we want to do, and that's going to change our game? Oh, we can't run against the Saints? Oh, how disappointing!" They don't give a damn. They don't care. The Bucs are going to come in and they're going to light this up. And Leftwich, the offense coordinator for the Bucs, has done a very good job of this, of finally coming around and saying, "All right, we need to be able to pass the ball, and then we get the run game going somewhere in the midst of that." They're not going to be interested in trying to run the ball, especially early on, and especially with that 38-3 that they had last year. The other thing I've heard this week, oh, the Saints have the Bucs number. Okay, well, they had it last year, right? Like, we're not talking about this year. We're talking about how they had the Bucs number last year, except in the playoffs where the Bucs won. Now, I will also mention that the Saints were driving to close that game out in the playoffs, and the tight whoever I can't remember the tight end fumbled and gave the ball back. And even if the Saints had gotten a field goal there or driven in for a touchdown, the Bucks probably don't go to the Bucks lose that game and probably don't go to the Super Bowl. Bucks got a little bit lucky. Tight end fumbles the ball, they get it back, they come back, they score, they take the lead, they end up winning, right? So it's not like the Saints um, didn't deserve to win that game. But I'm also talking about last year. And last year, the Saints had Drew Brees. This year, they have Jameis Winston. Two very different quarterbacks that changed the outcome of and the matchup of this particular game quite differently, obviously. I feel like that shouldn't be, I feel like that's a very obvious thing to say. However, I have seen multiple people and news shows say, hey, the Saints have the Bucks number. No, they don't. They beat them twice last year. But then they lost in the postseason. So how's that having their number? Like in the regular season, they have their number. Great. That was last year. Drew Brees this year. Jameis Winston. Two totally different offenses at this point. In fact, the Saints don't even have an identity on offense yet. They haven't figured out exactly how they need to use Jameis Winston or how they can use Jameis Winston, right? So, I think Todd Bowles is going to bring the pressure up front like he always does. He's going to send the blitz and he's going to play zone behind it. They play a good amount of zone. I think the Bucks play 60% zone. Let me look this up real quick. Tampa Bay Bucks. Basic defense 62%. Yep, sixth most in the league. So the Bucks play 62% zone, 22% man. Which their zone, they run the sixth most zone. They blitz on 38% of of snaps, of defensive snaps. That's first in the league. That's the most in the league. They have to do that to be able to get pressure and protect their secondary because that secondary is not great right now. Not great, Bob. And it's pretty banged up too. Now they do have a couple young players that aren't terrible in the secondary, but they can get beat up. They don't have to play hard against the run simply because they have Vita Vea up the middle, as well as JPP and Gronk up the middle as well, or Gronk, JPP and Ndamukong Suh up the middle. Which, by the way, if you haven't seen Ndamukong Suh's thread on financial literacy, go look up Ndamukong Suh on Twitter and read that from earlier this week. Very, very cool things that he's doing. They don't stack the box a lot. They play a fairly light box or 7 men in the box pretty much all the time. They're not concerned about the run. They're trying to help their pass right now. Now they've got to figure out how to get a rush. The Saints offensive line is getting healthy. I do want to double check that real quick and see who all they have in and have out today. Let's see. Pete is that's right. They put Pete on injured reserve. I think that happened yesterday. Taysom Hill is out. That's a big one. Here's the thing. Toots, morning, brother. Is that stat service you use a paid service? Yes, it is, and it is quite expensive. But I'm hoping to at least get some sort of a discount where you guys can potentially use it. It's one of those things where if you're not going to use it every single day, it's probably not worth it. If you don't think PFF Elite is worth it, then this stat service wouldn't be worth it. It's not PFF, but yeah. All right, let's see. Deontay Harris is questionable. Taysom Hill is out. I want to talk about why that's a big deal in a second. Lutz is out. Okay, that's good. So Ram checks in. McCoy is in. The only offensive lineman that they have out right now is Andrews Pete, who just hit injured reserve. That's a big one on the left side because or at tackle, because Pete is a major component of that offensive line and probably their best overall offensive lineman. So him being out stings. It also matters because Mr. Jameis Winston is not terrific at getting rid of the ball quickly. So the Bucks are going to mix it up front. They're going to move Sue and Shaq Barrett and those guys around. Levante David's still not back yet, but Devin White is going to be in there. I would expect Devin White to be blitzing more today. Here's the thing. I would want Devin White blitzing. They may end up putting him as just a shadow of Alvin Kamara and just saying, hey, you follow him wherever he goes, and then we'll call the defenses around you. I could totally see them doing that. But they play so much zone that I just don't know that it's there. So look for a lot of little dump offs to Kamara, some screens, stuff like that. I do think that uh, Jameis is going to have to try to test the secondary. I just don't know that he can maintain because the secondary can be beat if you can block the Bucks up front. The teams have showed that pretty much all season. Cowboys showed that week 1. And if you can go and attack these safeties and these corners, specifically the corners, go do that. You don't need to try to control the game because you can put up 30, 40 points. Now, the Bucks on offense have to understand that, and they have to try to put up 30, 40 points. Now, again, this Saints defense is very, very good. Overall third in DVOA. They're sixth in pass DVOA, second in rush DVOA. I think that's really important because it's not just trying to run, but they're kind of hard to throw against too. Now, not everybody has the weapons that the Bucks do, and the Bucks should still be able to move the ball. I do think that Gronk is healthy enough to play. Gronk is back. Gronk's playing this week. And I do think that he plays the entire game. They wouldn't put him in if they didn't feel like it. I think if they were to take if they were to pull Gronk from the game and put him on a pitch count and not play him all day, sexy, I think the value that he brings in the red zone is where they actually put him in and let him play, is in the red zone. So I expect him to have probably a touchdown today in his welcome back to the lineup, because when they get inside the 10, he becomes very, very important. The only way that he doesn't end up with a touchdown to me is if the Saints decide that it's more important to cover Gronk inside the red zone than it is to cover Mike Evans. If they think that Marshawn Lattimore can cover Gronk one-on-one inside the 5 or inside the 10, then they're definitely going to test Evans and Lattimore on the edge. If not, if they do put some safeties over there, then you should see Gronk get a shot inside the red zone. I don't think the run game plays a big part in this for the Bucks. They're going to give it a shot here and there because they just like to bang their head against the wall with the run every once in a while. But this game's going to be all about who controls the score from the start, who can get up and manage that score and try to put the other team at a disadvantage so that they can kind of single out what the other team wants to do. So this one's an interesting one to me. The problem I have with this is I don't think Jameis can keep up with Brady. I think that it's interesting because I think that Brady's up here as far as a quarterback, Jameis is here. But if you were to flip and ask me what defenses were better in terms of guarding the pass, it would be Saints defenses up here, Bucks defenses down here. That in itself brings these two quarterbacks from Brady being way better to a little bit more even. I just think that there's more. I obviously have more confidence in Tom Brady. I don't have as much confidence in Jameis Winston. Managraz, welcome back. Do you like most people hate the NFC least gets so much TV time? Oh, absolutely. And yes, I do know it's Jerry Jones and all that behind the scenes nonsense. I mean, we'll talk about that in a second, Mano. Because I think it's something we can hit pretty quickly. So for me, the problem, I trust Brady. I don't trust Jameis. Jameis is so volatile. He could come out and throw 4 touchdowns that are 40 yards or more. Like all of his touchdowns. And we've talked about this. We've nailed Jameis pretty much every week because Jameis has to throw from deep to be able to get his touchdowns. And that's why Taysom Hill is so important in the fact that he's out this week. When they get inside the 10, Taysom Hill is the better quarterback. Jameis is great between the 10s. Get inside the 10, he loses his mind for whatever reason. He just either doesn't process it fast enough, makes terrible decisions, ends up throwing the ball away, throwing interceptions, making bad decisions, and giving the ball to the other team. Taysom Hill adds legs to the equation, the ability to run the ball. He adds that to the equation, and he doesn't make as many stupid mistakes inside the 10. So when they get inside the 10, expect a heavy run game from the Saints. I don't expect them to put the ball in Jameis's hands. I would expect some trick plays, like a little toss to Kamara, and then Kamara throws it in for a touchdown if they get inside the 10. Like those things are going to come out from a Sean Payton offense because I don't think he trusts Jameis in there either. So overall, I gotta lean the Bucks. I'm surprised that that it's -4 for the Bucks. I gotta take the Bucks -4. Jameis probably makes too many, especially if the Bucks get up and they put pressure on Jameis. Jameis ends up making a couple stupid decisions. And the Saints here's the thing. I'll tell you exactly how this is gonna go. Saints are gonna be able to move the ball on the first drive, maybe second drive too. They're gonna move the ball up and down the field, probably score, probably get a touchdown on the first drive, 3 points on the second drive. And then from there, Todd Bowles is going to start figuring out how he wants to attack this defense, how he wants to attack the protections, how he can get under Jameis' skin. They'll start trying to rotate some of the coverages. And then I think from there, it depends on what the Bucks can do on offense as to how the rest of this game plays out. If the Bucks start scoring a whole bunch of points, then it starts putting pressure on Peyton to try to figure some things out. And it ends up being a bad game for Jameis. If they can keep it close and be able to rely, and the Saints are able to rely a little bit on the run game, manage the clock a little bit, I think the Saints have a good chance of winning this if they can keep that game close throughout the entire. But I just don't think they're there. I'm going to take the Bucks -4. But I think it's a fascinating game either way. All right, 12:32. We got one more game. We're right on schedule, actually. Wow, we actually did pretty well this week. TKH 2930. Hey, thank you so much for the sub. I appreciate that. Welcome in. Welcome to the crowd. You know, I need to figure out what do we want to call you guys? What did I say? Tampa Bay -4. We need to figure out what fun name we can call you guys. I watched some of these other streamers and their community names leave a lot to be desired. We'll put it like that. So we might have to come up with a fun name for you guys. See what that is. You're bad on the grammar. Don't worry about it, man. Do you think we can fade Cup today in fantasy? I don't see why you would. NFL philosophers? Yeah. The philosophizers? Give it time. Yeah, we'll figure it out. We don't want to overdo it, right? But anyways, TKH, thank you so much. So we've got Cowboys Vikings left. I'm taking Bucks Saints in that particular game. Let's talk about the question you'll name your. Yeah, there you go. You guys name yourselves. It's more fun that way. At least that way, it's something that you guys actually want to be called, and not something that is just cheesy, overly cheesy. So Manav said, do you like that most people hate the NFC East gets so much TV time? I do, and it's Jerry Jones behind that and all the scenes. So here's the thing. The nerds, the football nerds. There you go. I kind of like that, actually. So for me, whenever it comes to the NFC East being on TV so much, the NFL is really smart. And you can look at some of the ratings that come out for games and see when the Cowboys are on prime time, when they're at that 4:00 game, the numbers spike a significant chunk. We're talking 10, 20, 30% in some aspects, right? So if you talk about spikes in terms of a percentage, Ryan, it's all about asses and seats. To me, it's actually all about eyeballs on screens, right? So Isaac the Goat, welcome back. So if you think about it this way, right? So say you get, I don't know, I'm going to make up numbers. So say you get 1 million viewers for a game at 1:00 on Sunday. That's your typical. And then for the 4:00 game, you get 2 million because there's fewer games on at 4:00. And then for the evening game, you get 5 million. So one at 1:00, 2 at 4:00, 5 million watching the Sunday night football game. Now, that's just kind of general for pretty much every team across the league. Now, if you put the Cowboys into the 1:00 slot, now all of a sudden you get instead of 1 million, you get, say they give a 20% increase, right? To wherever they go. So at 1 o'clock, you put them in there. Now all of a sudden they're at 1.2 million. Okay, well, let's put them in at the 4 o'clock. Well, now all of a sudden you're at 1.4 million. So they've got you an extra 400,000 eyeballs on the TV. And then say you put them in on Sunday Night Football where there's 5 million people watching. Now you're adding a million extra eyeballs to go watch the Cowboys in that particular slot. So for them, it's all about efficiency. Where can we put the good teams that are going to get eyeballs? The Bucks used to not get any eyeballs. Nobody cared. Then all of a sudden Tom Brady came and now everybody wants to watch them. And now we have 5 or 6 primetime games throughout the season. So the NFL is very, very smart about how they do it. The NFC East gets a lot of clock because it's a New York team. It's the most watched football team in the Dallas Cowboys, and then Philly fans are pretty rabid and pretty impressive themselves. And so you've got 3 really good teams in there that are going to be and Washington. You could say the same thing about Washington fans. They're pretty rabid and pretty dedicated as well. And so those types of teams will get lots more. Like you don't see as many West Coast in those big time game slots because West Coast fans, they don't watch as much with those particular teams. Like the LA teams, people will show up to the games. It's become a status symbol thing. But watching it on TV, you're not going to get it. You're not going to get as many people. So that's why they don't put as many West Coast teams out there either. And they have all the data behind it to talk about how they can get the most views out there. They're very, very smart. NFL operations is very, very smart. They're the ones behind the scenes. And Goodell doesn't listen to them a ton, but he probably should. They've done a bad job of managing a bunch of the PR stuff, but yeah, they know what they're doing whenever it comes to me, because media is the biggest part of the pie for them. The media rights deals that they have are billions of dollars across all the different networks, and Thursday Night Football and Monday Night Football and Sunday Night Football. Like they literally have all the networks locked in to deals that are worth billions of dollars. So they make tons of money off of that. All right. Are you guys saying the 49ers Bears is not an ideal matchup for the NFL? No, not quite. All right. All of the big money in sports today is driven by television rights. You're absolutely right, HP. So the biggest draws are going to be put in the spot where most eyes can see. And that's why they introduced the flex games too, to get the most money they can from advertisers. So yeah, so one, it's advertisers, and two, it's the ratings. They need those ratings to be able to justify larger packages. And even though views and watching and ratings had been declining for the NFL over the last 3 to 4 years, they're way up this year. I think they're up like 18% over last year, something like that. They're back to like levels of like 2015 era. And those are going to be huge for them and their, in all of their negotiating and their media deals and stuff like that. They can make more money in everything that they do. Advertising, media deals, jersey sales, betting, all of that good stuff. So, yep, definitely going to be interesting. Even when they're declining their miles ahead of it. Yeah, so even when they're declining, they were declining by like 3 or 4%, while the rest of TV is declining by like 13-14%. So it's not 23 of the 25 most watched broadcasts this year have been NFL shows. Yeah, and they will continue to be. Like, it's just, you can talk about them declining, but one, they're not declining as fast as the rest of TV, and two, they're still number one. They're still the powerhouse. So that's why the NFL continues to succeed. They continue to make so much money, and contracts will continue to grow. To me, QB contracts are getting out of hand, but it also totally makes sense. So good question, though. Very, very good question. Love talking the business of football. We can absolutely do that some here. And when we get to the off season, we'll talk some draft. We'll talk some business of football. And I'm planning on getting some people on here to interview as well. We'll host some shows with some other people to talk football, talk personal stuff, talk some fun stuff as well. So thank you guys for tuning in. We are down to the last game. Cowboys Vikings. So this is a really intriguing game. I said that I would cover one particular matchup in this game. I think there are a few that are really fun to watch, but there's one I really specifically want to talk about. And this is where I wish I could be able to get like visuals for you guys. I'm going to start figuring out how and if that's even possible. All right. So when we talk about the Cowboys, one of the strengths of this team, we've already talked about Dak, right? So Dak may play, he may not play. It's a big loss for the Cowboys if he doesn't play. Anybody that says anything different, I have no idea why they would ever be allowed to talk about football, because this offense runs through Dak. They are a pass heavy offense that can run the ball when they need to. They are very, very adaptable, but Kellen makes everything run through Dak because he trusts Dak with this offense at the line of scrimmage. Without Dak, now you've got Cooper Rush in. He's not going to control things at the line of scrimmage. He's not going to be given two plays to say, "Hey, check to a run if the box is light, or throw deep if they've loaded the box." Cooper Rush isn't going to get that freedom. So it's going to change the dynamic of the offense, how it's called, how they go to the line of scrimmage, and what happens at the line of scrimmage. Obviously, there's a big physical talent gap between Cooper Rush and Dak as well, but I think that's pretty obvious. So anybody telling you that Dak not playing isn't a big deal needs to find another profession. Um, the other part about this is the offensive line for the Cowboys has been very, very good, both running and pass blocking. Now, one of the things that is going to come into play this week is Mike Zimmer is probably the best defensive coach in the NFL at figuring out how to attack protections and how offensive lines set up protections, manage protections, and adjust when their protections break down. We talked about how Phil Snow can get free runners. Mike Zimmer is the king of figuring out protections and learning how to attack them, and basically saying, what are the rules of the Cowboys offensive line? If we line up in a standard 4-3 set, what do they want to do? If we rotate our linebackers to the left, what do they want to do? If we rotate them to the right, how do they manage that? If we bring a safety into the box, how do they manage that? If we show blitz and this, that, or the other in any particular gap, how did they adjust to that? Mike Zimmer's great at figuring those things out and then adjusting his blitz packages to those, or his coverage packages to those. Because basically what he can do is he can get free runners. He's the king of I've heard him say mugging the A gap this year. That's the term that everybody's using this year, is mugging the A gap, or the double mug, which is bringing two linebackers into the A gaps, and then you've got the defensive tackles just on the outside of those two linebackers in the A gaps. And with that, plus the defensive ends, you've got six people along the line of scrimmage, and you've got five people blocking, right? If you don't have any extra blockers, you've got five on the O line that now have to decide how do they want to block six people that are now standing or hand down on the line of scrimmage. Mike Zimmer is fantastic at figuring out how offensive lines identify that, how they adjust, and the protections that they call, and running against that, right? So if they say, "Hey, we're going to slide the line right when this happens," or slide the line left when this happens, then he's going to bring extra pressure from the right side he's going to leave those two linebackers there, but they'll fall out, and then he'll bring pressure from the right side. So that way he doesn't have to bring extra blitzers. He can bring one extra blitzer. He can bring no extra blitzers, but he could potentially get somebody free to the line, to the quarterback, to make him throw it faster than he wants to throw it. And he's fantastic at doing that. So he'll identify what the Cowboys want to do against certain looks, and then he'll attack that with his linebackers, safeties, defensive line, defensive ends, stuff like that. So fun thing to watch in terms of today, because I think that plays a big piece into how today plays out for the Cowboys, because the Vikings have to get pressure. They are without Patrick Peterson. Rashad Breeland is a hit or miss. He's a guy that he's played better the last couple of weeks, but he gets burned a bunch. And this is the type of team to be able to do that against him. I'm surprised to see the Vikings. Is that right? The Vikings are favored by 2.5. No, that's not right. I'm looking at an app right now, and it says that the Vikings are favored by 2.5, and that absolutely cannot be right. The line was Minnesota +3. Did they announce that Dak's not playing? Hmm. I'm sorry. I'm just so blown away that line is Vikings minded. Now, here's the thing. I love the Vikings. I'm higher on the Vikings than a lot of K Toth. Welcome in. K to the OS. Sorry. Um, I know it's uncertain. Dak is most likely going to play. The last I heard. Let me just search for Dak. I just want to see if there's anything going on Twitter. Nope. Even with Cooper Rush, I think it hurts the Cowboys a ton. However, I think it changes. I think it hurts them in a way that it changes what they need to do on offense. I think they can attack this Minnesota defense in a number of different ways. And I think they basically take the game out of the quarterback's hands and put it in Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard's hands, and then they create a whole different game plan. Um, if Dak doesn't play, I don't think this is a game where the Cowboys come into this game not knowing what they're going to do. I think they have a very good idea because they would have to practice two very different game plans for them to be able to manage this week, and that hurts because then it hurts their execution on Sunday. So I think they probably needed to decide early on what they were going to do. Which now that I'm thinking about it, if that's the case, then basically they have to decide, and then and that probably leans towards Dak not playing. So it sounds like the sharps are all on Minnesota and saying, "Hey, Dak's not going to play tonight," or they're trying to manipulate the line and move it that way, and it ends up being okay. So, if we flip that around though, so Minnesota on offense, what do they like to do? Offensive line, meh. They love to run the ball, right? Minnesota love to run the ball. And if they can run the ball, which I think they can, so Dallas uses safeties as linebackers effectively. Dallas can get pressure up front with their defensive line. Randy Gregory's having a fantastic year. We know that Parsons moving to defensive end has been huge for them, and I think they would be able to get a good amount of pressure on Kirk Cousins today. I don't think Minnesota wants to put the ball in Kirk Cousins' hands. However, when they do, Cousins is typically pretty smart with the football this season. He's been incredibly accurate. He can hit those medium to intermediate throws just fine. He has a fantastic trio of wide receivers, probably one of the better trios in all of the NFL. And I think that this is a game where he's going to be able to attack the single high that that the Cowboys are going to want to play. They're Cowboys are going to have to figure out what to do with Trayvon Diggs and where they're going to put him. And Kirk Cousins is going to go, that's fine. I'm going the other direction. Because whether it's Jefferson or whether it's Adam Thielen, whoever they don't put Diggs on should have a massive game. This feels like a game where both teams could attack in the pass game if all of the elements lined up. I think both teams end up wanting to run the ball today based on the way the game is lining up. So, can they run the ball? And if the Vikings can't run the ball effectively, I think it ends up being a pretty bad game for them. I just, even without Dak, I still think the Cowboys I still think the Cowboys are going to be able to run the football. Minnesota's defense is not that good. Let's see, where are they at? Yeah, they're not that good against the run. That's what I was thinking. So they're third and they're sixth overall on defense and defensive DVOA. They're third in pass defensive and pass DVOA and 24th against the run and defensive DVOA. So much better against the pass than they are against the run. It's a hard game to call because this is going to be so based on strategy, and Kellen Moore versus versus Mike Zimmer and Dan Quinn against that Vikings offense. Those are the calls to me that end up making this game big. I can't, even without Dak, I've got to take the Cowboys plus 2.5, even without Dak. If that moved to 3, I would feel much more comfortable with it. But I think at 2.5, it just feels like such a close game. I fully believe that Minnesota is capable of winning this game, with or without Dak. I just think with Dak, they have to have the perfect game plan. Without Dak, it makes it a little bit easier for them. They've got to be able to figure out how to run the ball. Don't let the Cowboys offense on the field too much, and to be able to tack what I think is an opportunity for Dallas to have a big game. If Dak is healthy and in a full go and can really sling it, Minnesota's in trouble, because they absolutely can attack the secondary. If not, then Dallas 6-0 against the spread. I fully believe that Dallas has been better than everybody thought, basically. And that's what I kept saying is and keep saying is I was higher on Dallas than everybody but Dallas fans. And I still feel like they overachieved my expectations. So that means they overachieved everybody's expectations, basically, except for Cowboys fans. It's just so hard to pick this without knowing Dak's status. I'm gonna go plus 2.5. I'm gonna roll with it because I think overall they're the better team. I think they're overall they're better coached, and I fully trust. This feels so weird. Dallas plus 2.5. I feel like they're better coached, and Kellen Moore is gonna adjust to whatever the Vikings throw. That's gonna be a fun matchup to see how he and Zimmer play against each other and architect a game against each other. It's going to be a blast. All right, Dallas 2.5. I'm sticking with it. All right. Final recap. Mark that out. All right, here we go. Do we want to let me just drop this. I'm going to pull these up so you guys can see the lines as we go through them very, very quickly. The lines have changed a little bit from when we picked them, which is interesting already. But we're going to get into these. So, do I have this? I don't have this up. All right, give me one second. I just want to pull this. Is this going to work? Yes. All right, it worked perfectly. All right, let's do this. And we shall pull this over. All right, final run through. Let me roll this up. For some reason, Rams Texans moved down here. All right, so let's go through Rams Texans. So we got Green Bay right. We called Green Bay plus 6.5. We got a W on that. Rams Texans, taking the Rams minus 16. I don't think that they have. I don't think the Rams end up having a letdown game like they did last week. I think the Lions came out and gave them everything that they got, but the Rams are still just much better. I don't think they have that same problem this week against Houston. And I always said that I will never bet on Davis Mills again. So I'm going to take the Rams minus 16. I feel like they're going to come in much better prepared, and knowing that they still have to play football against bad teams. Pittsburgh, Cleveland. This is an interesting game for me. It really depends on if Myles Garrett can wreck the backfield of Pittsburgh, because if he can, then Cleveland's going to have themselves a day. I still think Cleveland can move the ball on the ground. Baker Mayfield sounds like he's going to play, and should be good to go in this. I don't think it matters a ton, to be quite honest, because I think Cleveland's going to run the ball. They're going to continue to run the ball. That game runs through their running backs and their offensive line. I'm taking Cleveland minus 4. Philly, Detroit. I know everybody's on Detroit. Detroit's covered the spread a bunch recently. They've played some good teams really, really well. I get why people are wanting to pick them against Philly. I think Philly is a bad matchup for them. Detroit really struggles when there's speed on the edges, and at the receiver position. And I think Philly has a really good job. As we said before, Hurts is really good in garbage time. Playing against the Lions is like playing in garbage time all the time. So he should have a good day today. These receivers should have a good day today. I don't think they necessarily need the run game to get going today. The one thing that the Lions could do is if they can get DeAndre Swift isolated on a linebacker, he could have a huge. He could receive for 100. He could catch 150 yards today and a touchdown or two. So I'm taking Philly minus 3. on this particular one. I like the Lions. I just don't. Philly's not Lions type of bad. But the Rams aren't even close, and they played them close last week too. So I totally understand why people are wanting to go with the Lions. I just don't. I don't think it's a good matchup for them. The other thing is on that particular game, the Phillies got to start mixing up their defense a little bit. They play so vanilla that even Goff may be able to slice them up today because Goff's going to get what he wants to, what he sees pre-snap, he will get post-snap, and that's going to be a big deal for him, and being able to deliver the football with confidence. So that's the little bit of a caveat that I would put there on Detroit. Could totally see them winning that game, but I'm taking Philly to cover. San Francisco, Chicago. So I'm taking San Francisco -4. This front is a bad match for the offensive line and Justin Fields, who still just cannot identify where pressure is coming from, and San Francisco won't be afraid to mix it up. My big question is can San Francisco actually score? Jimmy G has not played well this season. Shanny has been weird about his sexy Bruce Arians told Jay Glazer that he's only planning to use Rob Gronkowski in emergency situations today. Yeah, so that's what I was talking about, right? Is if they do decide to put him on a pitch count, Gronk's going to be in the red zone and may not play much between the 20s. It totally makes sense because they have OJ Howard to be able to manage through that, right? So that plays exactly into what we said earlier on the show. With San Francisco, my question is can they score on the Bears defense? Bears defense isn't bad. I would say probably average to above average. But they don't have Khalil Mack. That's going to be a big thing. Jalen Johnson has played very, very well in the secondary. So San Francisco may have to figure out somebody else to go to outside of Deebo Samuel, unless they can move Samuel around to get him on other people. So I just think San Francisco, even though I'm not confident in their ability to score, I think they're the overall better team, and I'm still not a big fan of Fields against this particular one. Nagy is out, which subtraction by addition. When you remove Nagy from the equation, things get better. So that's the other thing that scares me a little bit for Chicago. Carolina, Atlanta. I'm taking Carolina +3. I think Carolina wins this game. I think everybody's worried about Sam Darnold and how well he's played. I think Sam Darnold is, if you want to get on the right track as a quarterback, go play the Falcons. They'll make you look good. They made Tua look good last week. So I think Sam Darnold's going to end up being fine. DJ Moore probably has a good day. I can see Terrace Marshall or Robbie Anderson having a good day today too. The big question is can Atlanta find points against the Carolina defense, which isn't, they're not a stud defense anymore, but they are very good at rushing the passer, and Atlanta has a bad offensive line, and they're going to need to figure out how to get rid of the ball quickly. Expect Cordero Patterson to have a big day. Miami, Buffalo -14. Miami's just not a good football team. Buffalo's going to take away the out routes that Tua loves to throw. And just based off of that, you gotta, it's Buffalo -14 in Buffalo. Cincinnati -11 over the New York Jets. It feels like a potential letdown game for Cincinnati. The Jets just aren't very good, and I could totally see Cincinnati wrecking that game from start to finish. So I can't really just bet on just a feeling like it could potentially be a letdown game. The matchups say that Cincinnati still probably wins, and wins pretty heavily. Tennessee, Indianapolis. So Colts, Titans. This is one of the more intriguing matchups. Fascinating to watch this one play out. Is Carson Wentz the real deal? Love what Frank Reich's doing with that offense. However, I feel like this is a terrible matchup for the Colts defense. I feel like the downhill run game, the misdirection that Tennessee can run with their offensive line and Derrick Henry is going to be a major problem for Tennessee. This is going to be one of those games where they probably don't try to use Tannehill a ton unless the Colts start loading the box. Colts are small but fast on defense. That's a bad matchup for a Tennessee team that can just steamroll you all game. I totally understand why people love the Colts in this game, why the Colts are favored. I just think this is a bad matchup. Wentz playing much, much better. So give credit to him. He cannot have 10 turnover-worthy plays like he did last week. So, yeah, I'm Tennessee +3. I like Tennessee to win that game. I think Tennessee wins. I think Tennessee ends up winning that game. Is that right? I feel like I'm reading some of these wrong. Yeah, Tennessee +3. All right. Where are we at? on mine. New England, LAC. Fascinating game for me. Chargers coming off a bye week. Have they fixed that run defense? It's going to get tested today. New England's going to play cover 2, keep the ball in front of them. This is going to be the same game plan as against the Bucs and the Cowboys. They're going to slow the game down, control the clock. New England is. And they're going to try to keep Mike Williams from hitting those big deep plays. Expect a solid game from Keenan Allen, maybe Jared Cook, Austin Eckler. In the pass game could potentially be a big one as well if he doesn't get a ton of touches in the run game. I think this is the under. 49.5 was the original. It's moved up to 50.5. I take the under on this. I don't think this is going to be a full. It's the only total this week that I feel like is out of line. So much that I'm just like, wow, there should be something against that. So taking New England +4. They play a lot of close games, even though I do think the Chargers are a much better team. And I will take the under as well. Jacksonville, Seattle. Taking Jacksonville +4. See, I do think Seattle's a much better team, but I do think Jacksonville will be able to get the run game going. If they're able to get the run game going, then this becomes a much, much closer game. Washington, Denver, taking Washington +4. Denver's not a very good football team. I've completely reversed what I thought about them since the first few weeks of the season. Without Jerry Jeudy, they don't have the receivers to get open. And Washington's starting to figure some things out, both on offense and defense. And I see some improvements starting to happen. I think this is a game where they kind of come out and potentially even pull off a win. Tampa Bay, New Orleans, taking Tampa Bay -4. I just think Tampa Bay is going to be too much. This is one of those games where they just kind of squeeze the life out of you at the end. I trust Brady. I don't trust Jameis. I don't think the Saints have an identity on offense. They're going to try to figure out how to get Kamara the ball without putting too much on Jameis. Jameis is going to have to score from deep because once they get condensed into the red zone, they're gonna do some weird stuff. Sean Payton's gonna call some weird plays to allow them to be able to do this. So to be able to score and not put Jameis in a situation where he's he may end up turning the ball over. Dallas, Minnesota. I'm taking Dallas +2.5. I'm surprised they're 2.5 +2.5. I like Minnesota a lot. I just don't feel like this is a great matchup for Minnesota. This obviously matters a lot whether Dak plays. It sounds like, based on the lines, it sounds like Dak's not going to play. If he doesn't play, that is a very big deal, but it's a very big deal because it means that Kellen Moore is going to have to change what he wants to do on offense. It doesn't mean that they can't win. Because I do think that Dallas can still win even without Dak. It's just they're going to have to win in a very, very different way. So I do think Dallas keeps this one close. Minnesota tends to play closer games. So I'm going to go Dallas +2.5. It's still leaning towards them potentially winning. And then Giants and KC -10. I feel like they're going to figure it out, and the Giants feel like a bad matchup in terms of their lack of aggressiveness, their conservatism on offense, or as a coaching staff. And so for me, that's just one of those situations where I still think KC is going to figure it out. And if they haven't figured it out by this week, I don't know when they're going to figure it out because they're not going to get a whole bunch of chances to figure it out over the next few weeks. So that's all I've got. That's everybody. That's everything. Sorry, let's do that. Oh, good. Desktop audio's down. So that is an absolute blast. That's everybody. That's all of the games. Husky, thanks so much for the stream. I very much enjoyed it. All fellow NFL philosophers, nerds, have a spooky game day. Hey, happy Halloween to everybody. Thank you guys so much. I'm going to go drop you guys off over in Gold Glovers chat. They typically do a kind of a red zone stream. Him and G Girl do it together. So a whole lot of fun. I'm going to drop you guys off over there. If there's anything that I can do, if you guys want to hit me up on Twitter, NFL Philosophy, same name as here on Twitch. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. Really super excited about it. Sorry, I got to get better about these raids, man. Sexy Husky, HP, K to the OS, Ryan. Let's see, Managraz, welcome back in. Ryan, thanks so much. Crossover. Who else did I miss? Toots, thanks for hanging out. Quez the Don, I like the new name much better. Sexy, thanks again so much. Thanks everybody for participating. Had a blast. I can't wait to do it again on Tuesday. We will do Blind Girl. Thanks so much. Thanks for hanging out. I didn't realize you were still here. But we'll do our recap show on Tuesday night at 7 Eastern. I'll jump on and we'll recap all of Week 8. So good luck to all you Bears fans out there. We got a good amount of those in there. Yeah, I went to make pumpkin pie, then come back. Ooh, that sounds good, actually. Might have to grab some. I got my pumpkin spice coffee this morning, actually. The only one that I've had. Actually, maybe that's not true. But yeah, go Bears to all you Bears fans out there. Good luck. Enjoy your games today. Hopefully all of your teams all stay very, very very healthy, and that you guys get your wins, hit your bets, and hopefully make a lot of money. So appreciate all of you guys hanging out. I'm going to drop you guys over in Gold Glover now. Thank you all so much. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday.